How are we doing, New York Jets fans? Draft day, night, whatever you want to call it, is here. We got 8 p.m. kickoff Eastern Standard Time, which, of course, for myself means 1 a.m. kickoff British Standard Time, Greenwich Mean Time. Going to be a long one. Going to be a late night. Already a late night. It's 1 a.m. But it's here. We wait all year for this, so we certainly will not be taking a pass and not covering it. The goal is to once again do what we did last year and cover all 257 picks as they roll in. So we will see how that goes. If I am able to stay conscious for the duration, Dylan Terraman may or may not be joining me. Apparently feeling a little bit under the weather. And he let me know earlier that he's going to do his best to come on and join us, at least for picks 1 through 10. I think that the Jets are going to stick and pick. I would like to see them move down. I think they want to move down. I think most teams want to move down. That is the general consensus, especially when you've got a draft where it already seems like the talk is that teams prefer next year's class to this year's class. But the mocks are out. The mocks have been out all day. Let's talk about some of the hypotheticals for Gang Green. Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State, he's a guy that I believe – no, I said Jeremiah mocked him earlier. I think I missed that, though. There were two prominent mockers who had Warren, and even if they hadn't, I mean, Warren is a name who's been tied to the Jets for several weeks now. The Jets, of course, met with him on a visit earlier this week, or it was reported earlier this week they met with him. Do you take a tight end at 7? Well, in a class where there aren't a lot of elite guys, and he is one of the elite guys, I believe, depending on who you're listening to and who you trust, there's this sort of belief that this isn't a class where there's a ton of blue chip prospects. Some people, feel like there are 3 or 4, maybe 5 guys. You've got Hunter at the top. You've got Carter at the top. You've got Mason Graham. You've got Gianti and Warren. I mean, you could argue those 5 are the 5 best players in this class. Cam Ward, of course, will go number 1 overall, as you should expect with the quarterback. I mean, that's just the way of the league today. I know some people, I guess earlier this week, Rich Eisen was asking why in the world isn't Travis Hunter going first? He's the best player. And it's like, well, because this is a quarterback-driven league, and if you don't have one and you're at the top of the draft, that's what you're taking. And if you do have one at the top of the draft, you're probably trading out so someone else can take one. But as it stands, Tennessee does not have one. Titans don't have a quarterback. They're going to take Cam Ward, and then we will be off and running from there. Draft is, they say 8 o'clock kickoff, which would be 10 minutes. But, of course, there's always like Goodell on stage taking his time. They said they're going to have some type of somebody coming out with him. Like last year, it was Eminem in Detroit. So Wisconsin, I don't know who's famous from Wisconsin, but I guess I'm sure there's somebody. But hey, Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Aaron Rodgers will come out to greet the Packers fans. Seriously doubt that. Rich, how we doing, buddy? Tyler is trending at 7. Yeah, look, a lot of people leaning that way, but folks are all over the map on this. Rich Samini said it's going to be a tackle. A few people have said tackle. I know that Todd McShay said it would be Walker. The hybrid edge linebacker out of Georgia. Now, is that something Jets fans would be in favor of? At this point, as I tweeted out a little bit ago, that he would be, if the Jets take a D lineman, no matter who it is, that would be the 9th time they've taken a defensive lineman in the first round since 2008, which is absolutely bonkers. And here to join us now for a little bit, anyway, is our good friend Dylan Terraman. Dylan, how we doing? How we feeling with the Jets? Probably about an hour away from being on the clock.
Dude, we finally made it. No more arguing about tackle, tight end, wide receiver, edge. I mean, we'll find out in a little bit. I'm excited. I didn't know you were going live early. I just woke up from my nap. I had to get rid of a headache, but I'm
sorry about that.
Now. No, you're good. I'm ready to roll now. So a lot of rumors, a lot of BS the last 24 hours, 48 hours, especially around Breece Hall. Hopefully those things aren't true. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, Rich just said in the chat, and I was going to bring that up. rumor that the Jets are making Breece Hall available. That was put out by Josina Anderson. Connor Hughes just came out a few minutes ago and said he's not being shopped, but he's available via trade, which is kind of silly because everyone's available via trade. As Aaron Glenn talked about, when he was with the Jets and Bill Parcells took over, he went to his office and Parcells said, look, someone makes me the right offer and I'll trade my wife. Everyone's available via trade. That's just the way it is. So it's kind of a non-story to say the Jets will trade Breece for the right offer. You would trade anybody for the right offer. However, what kind of gives this some legs, and not even legs in terms of whether or not it's true, Josina Anderson sends out the tweet that Breece is available. Breece then sends out a fingers crossed tweet, which I interpret to mean, hope this happens. Hope I get out of here and go to a place where they on occasion will win more football games than they lose. Because, been a long time since I've done that. So you get the impression that Breece wants out. And then the Jets they have Connor come out and say, well, he's not being shopped. They're just listening to offers. Also interesting, a Dallas beat writer, Clarence Hill, I believe. He's been with Dallas for a while. He tweeted out, I don't know if it was, he didn't tweet it like it was a hypothetical. He said something's in the works. Aaron White-Cotton, who of course was the Jets defensive line coach, has let people know, as in suggesting White-Cotton has told people in the building, we don't have a running back and this guy's worth going to get. Your thoughts on that, Dylan? I'm just going to shut the door real quick.
Hey, if somebody's going to offer the right package, you obviously have to entertain it. I'm concerned about what the package will be in return for Breece Hall. Are you even going to get a third-round pick for Breece? I don't think so. It's probably going to be a fourth-round pick, maybe even multiple day 3 assets. So the whole second round, even third round for Breece Hall, I can't really get on board with. I love the player. It's just unfortunate that the production really hasn't been there. The injuries have kind of mounted a little bit. So, like I said, if somebody's going to give you an offer and you like the offer, you're obviously going to entertain it. But I hope that wouldn't be coupled with a move to go draft Ashton Jeanty. You know what I mean? Like, I hope they would just add a day 3 pick to the Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis room, even though they re-signed Kene Nwangu for a minimal deal. But like you said, Rick Spielman raved about Braylon Allen. So like now that he's in the front office, is that like a case where they want to look to him to be the 1A to somebody else who's a 1B? But you could find a day 3 addition at running back and not have to take Jeanty at 7 in order to replace Breece Hall. I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1, but I guess it would depend on what the offer is. It makes sense that Aaron White-Cotton would advocate for a guy that like Breece Hall, who we just saw up close in person for the last 2 or 3 years. So that's exciting. I guess, yeah, it depends on what the offer is and how they feel about the return they're getting. But to me, I wouldn't do it for just 1 4th-round pick.
Yeah, to the comment you made, and I tweeted it out earlier, and this stuck with me because it really surprised me. If you remember, Braylon Allen had a couple of nice games early on, but then they really just almost cut him out of the offense.
When
2 or 3 carries a week kind of guy.
Played very well, yeah.
Yeah, and even with that being the case, it was sort of late season, and they did an episode on Spielman's podcast talking about some of the more impressive rookies. And even despite not carrying the ball a whole lot, he put Braylon Allen in his top 5 rookies. So that kind of told me, like, wow, he's really high on this kid. And now you have a situation where you've got Breece again, who is not coming off of a fresh injury. He had the Achilles a couple of years ago, but he didn't put it this way. He's been good, but I don't think he has looked the same since the Achilles. That rookie year, he looked like he was going to be a 5.5 yard per carry back for the next, 7-8 years. Just hasn't been the case. He's been good, not great. So if you're going to shop him, I understand what you're doing, but at the same time, I'm not giving him up for less than what you're getting a comp pick next year. The following, it'll be awarded next 100%. Year or after this year, and then you get the following. So, yeah, I think having said he's been less than you expected as a rookie, he's still good enough with a good offense. Listen, people say to me, oh, he's never had a 1,000-yard year. That's because the Jets counted wrong. Like, he got 997. Is 3 yards really the difference between, like, oh, man, we thought he was going to be good, but he didn't get that extra 3 yards? This is ridiculous. That's aesthetically pleasing. That's all that, ooh, look, 1,000. That's 4 digits. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. There's nothing real to that. Behind a good offensive line, and especially, look, this year, I think the Jets, with Justin Fields and that backfield, I think they're gonna ground and pound it. I think we're gonna see a lot of run game and a lot of variety. So I could see Brees having a big year and getting a big contract that would then make him worth a 3rd-round comp pick. Again,
Right.
if you don't go out and sign somebody at huge money that would negate it. But if you can't get now that could be part of the equation. If the Jets are forecasting ahead and looking at what their cap situation will be and thinking this year we signed a bunch of bottom of the roster guys, next year we're going to go all in and sign 4 or 5 big ticket guys, then you're not getting a pick for Brees.
Mhm.
Then a 4th or 5th round pick is more than you're going to get. I hadn't even really considered that because we don't know, because teams do that. Like they forecast out years ahead. It's not like they just look at this offseason.
Yes.
So if their plan next offseason is, hey, we'll draft some pieces this year, we'll get Sauce re-signed, we'll get Garrett re-signed, we'll get JJ re-signed, we'll draft, hopefully hit on some picks this year, then next offseason we're going to sign some big ticket guys. If they're doing that, then you're not getting a pick for Brees, and maybe you do take a 4, maybe you do take a 5. But if I'm Dallas, I can see why they'd consider it because they might have the worst running back situation in the NFL.
Yeah, I think the best case scenario in my mind for Brees is we probably add a day 3 guy or a UDFA who probably outperforms his expectations in training camp, and you feel really good about the 3 outside of Brees, and you can entertain a trade at the deadline or, let him walk and get the comp pick. I'm in agreement there, unless you really think, okay, next year we're going to be big spenders. They see the free agent potential. They see, they kind of know where their holes are currently as they stand now. But I don't know. It's an interesting situation with Brees because positional value comes into play. ROI comes into play. The rest of the room and the confidence you have in it comes into play. But the Cowboys do need a running back. And I don't think they would take one at 12. Maybe with their 2nd round pick, they could try to get a, RB3 or 4 off the board if like Travion Henderson is there. And to me, that sounds more appealing than trying to trade for Brees Hall. But they also got burned in the Jonathan Mingo trade. So I don't know how willing they are to just deal top 125 picks willy-nilly for some players. And it's a deep running back class too. So that does hurt Brees Hall's chances. Now, you cross your fingers and you tweet out an emoji like that on Twitter, and it makes it seem like you don't want to be here anymore. So
that's the thing.
It's going to sour. It's going to sour quickly with fans, I believe. Like I'm already at the point, like if you don't want to be on the team, sorry, like see you later. I don't care who you are. Like it's unfortunate, but like I don't want hostages. Like even if Garrett Wilson didn't want to be here and those rumors were true at the end of last season, like I wouldn't be advocating to pay him. I would be like, okay, just let him leave then. If like you don't want to be here, that's fine. We need people who want to be here. So I hope that wasn't the case. But these damn cryptic tweets, man, it's so hard.
And here's the problem I'm going to have is that I wear glasses. I don't have contacts because I would lose them or put them both in the same eye. I don't wear the glasses during the show because I hate when people do and you get the reflection. That annoys me. And so I might read some things wrong tonight. The reason I say that is Chris has put a comment in here in the chat. I thought it started out, I want women. And I think Chris is in the wrong conversation. We're here to talk draft. And then I went, oh, hang on, Warren. All right, so Chris, and you may want that too. I don't know. But that I looked at it, I thought, oh my God, we're getting spammed 2 minutes into the draft. Yep. He is not spamming us. So he's saying, I want Warren, watch his game against Ohio State, be the guy, best guy on the field, but throw the top 10 names in a bucket and pull one out, and I'll be okay. That's kind of where I'm at, Dylan. Mm-hmm. I've moved beyond the possibility of Tetairoa McMillan, not Tet, by the way. Tetairoa McMillan. Yes. I've moved on from that. But I still want that. He's still my top choice, but I'm just like, all right, they're not. And let me say this real quick. And I tweeted this out earlier because Connor Hughes tweeted out that he's still in play. That doesn't mean he is. Sometimes these guys get stuff wrong. But I may have said Connor Hughes tweeted it out that Tetairoa McMillan is still in play for the Jets at 7. And right away, they're not drafting someone who doesn't love football. They're not drafting a guy who doesn't watch film, blah, blah, blah. And I get all that. But you have to think about this. If the reason I want them to take him at 7, and I would be fine with that, if they take him at 7, that tells me the Jets did their homework and they came away happy. I mean, let's put this video into context. We don't know when that. I've heard it was a couple of years ago.
Yes,
We don't know when it was. We don't know who it was. That camera angle was so weird. I'm like, was that a camera in someone's pocket who was bothered? Like, he's literally sitting there eating food. Like, is he sitting down to lunch and someone he doesn't even know comes over and starts questioning him about football and he just throws out dumb answers to get rid? I don't know. He wasn't sitting down for an interview with ESPN, and he might not like film. And if he doesn't, then that's something coaches are going to tell the Jets, and the Jets are going to take him off their board. But if they take him, there's no way they did due diligence on him and came back thinking, yep, he doesn't like football, doesn't like practicing, doesn't like working, but we're going to take him anyway. So if he's the pick, don't panic and say, oh my God, they drafted a guy who's not committed and dedicated. They're going to do their homework on whoever they take. So don't let that worry you. Chris says, by the way, oh, I'll take women too. Well, listen, like I said, whatever, to each his. I don't know how many are available in the draft tonight. I don't know if the Jets taking any. We'll have to see. But let's see. Thomas says, I fixed the Jets. Trade back to 7. Listen, everybody wants to trade back.
Yeah.
For 18, 50, and 52. Absolutely. I'm all for it. You want to give me 3 picks in the top 100 for pick 7? I'm all for it.
Not happening.
But yeah, there's so few teams that, and I try to.
He's giving up more, but okay.
Yeah. The Dallas for 76 and their 2026 fourth round. That's a lot of trades. Took Kelvin Banks. That's who Samini said he's got them taking.
Yep.
Earlier today.
Josina, who just put out the report a couple hours ago about the Jets. She just tweeted a minute ago, Jets fans, which player do you think is going to be there for you? Kelvin Banks, Will Campbell, or Armand Membu? That's I mean, that aligns with my thinking. Campbell would be the second guy on my board in a perfect world based on the most realistic people that are expected to be there. But I would take Banks. I would take Membu. Obviously, I would take Mason Graham if he was there too. So,
are you seeing this?
I have it on mute, but I see Lil Wayne on a bike.
That's right. I just looked over. I saw Lil Wayne on a bike coming out. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, notable Packers fan, Lil Wayne. It's
like Goodell just does everything he can to not get booed to start the draft, and it doesn't matter. He comes out with military veterans, Eminem. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. There's no one. There's no one he can come out with that they won't boo him. They're gonna. Yeah, it's a tradition like no other. It's kind of
the best.
I think even Goodell at this point, if he didn't get booed, he'd be like, "What's going on? What's wrong here?"
He would start to question his own notoriety in the NFL.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. He's losing his touch. So we'll see. I don't know how far behind I'm going to be here.
Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out my audio situation. One, so that we don't hear it through my microphone so we don't get in trouble. 2, so that we're aligned. But 3, so that I can freaking hear it because I have my AirPods in. So trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, we'll see. Whatever it is, we'll hop on it, comment.
If you're able to time it up with me, we can try to figure that out. Like one of us can pause it if we're ahead of the other. So
I'm having to watch people that are streaming it on YouTube, which means it's going to get shut down a few times, and I'm going to have to find new streams.
I got
and
you.
I'm following on NFL.com as well, but I don't know how quick they are with it.
Yeah, I'm watching the NFL Plus live stream. He's announcing Jordy Nelson. Wow, Jordy Nelson came off the farm to come out and support on draft.
And it looked like another guy there. I recognized an old Packer. That was Clay Matthews.
They just introduced somebody who I forget. Is that Ahman Green in the hat? Mason Crosby, James Jones.
Oh, and of course, because the Packers do that tradition with riding the kids' bikes into training camp.
That is what they are doing, yes.
I was trying to figure the significance of Lil Wayne being on the bicycle, but of course, that's it.
I think the first round picks were rumored to come up on bikes, like the ones that are in the green room. I'm not sure if that was.
Oh, that's all you need. Someone go off the side of the stage on a damn bike.
Could you imagine?
Cam Ward. Don't. That's dumb.
Hopefully they all know how to ride bikes. Maybe that was one of the pre-draft questionnaires.
Yeah, you're gonna see somebody walking up with it,
just walking their bike.
Damn right. Seriously, I guess is Lil Wayne a Packer fan?
Yeah, he is. He did
Okay.
a Packers song when they were in the Super Bowl, and everybody was like, "I thought you're from New Orleans. You should be a Saints fan." He's like, "No, I've been a Packers fan forever." And like, I don't know. We thought it was at the time just a bandwagon thing, but he has been a Packers fan, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, did you see the story on Shador that
His range, 3 to
Shefty
the second
Shef
round.
no Shef Shefty came out and said he's not going 3 and he's not going 9.
Yep.
And McShay said a few days ago the Steelers like him, but the Steelers do not like him enough to take him at 21.
100%.
So he could be a round
Draft is
2 guy.
officially open. I heard Goodell say that. Draft is officially
Yeah,
open. The Titans are on the clock.
Rap Sheet
10
tweeted
minutes
a
to
few
pick.
seconds ago.
I
Well, they
agree,
better.
though. I don't
I
think
get mad when they don't run it up right away. Like if Cam Ward isn't announced in the next 90 seconds, it's just stupid.
They're told to wait, which is so dumb because we've known the pick. The GM Borgonzi came out and said the consensus, we've made it. We're going to make the pick. So like you would just assume, and nobody's on the damn phone in the war room, in the Titans war room. So clearly it's going to be a couple minutes.
Oh, you know, I'm such a dope. I forgot NFL.com has the live TV coverage as well.
Yeah, NFL.com, NFL Plus has all of it.
Yeah, NFL Network Live.
But no, I agree. Shedeur Sanders, I mean, to me, it's tough, man. Like, I wouldn't want to take him over Abdul Carter at 3. I wouldn't want to take him over, Michael Williams at 9 or whatever the Saints are looking at otherwise. I think you got to try to stick BPA in this draft and kind of finesse the board. And if you need to trade up in the late first round, maybe you do something like that. But
what about, let me kill the volume here. What if you're the Rams? Do you consider him as a developmental guy, or not a developmental, but a successor to Stafford, and take him there?
I could see it. I don't know enough because McShay talked a lot about the quarterbacks and like the coaches and schemes that would best fit him versus the ones that would best fit Dart. And I guess if I had to just assume the Rams have their choice of Shedeur or Dart, I think they would lean Dart schematically. But I think that's a place where you put them in the right situation, the right environment, and in 2-3 years, nobody is batting an eye that the Rams made a good pick. So I think that's a good environment.
I'm trying to think who it was. I know, I think everyone sort of universally agrees Cam Ward would be down the list if this was last year's draft. Somebody yesterday said he'd be QB6, which I thought 4.
I hate doing that like conversation of like the comparisons and whatnot. One, because it's 1 year out. Okay.
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy didn't play. Michael Penix barely played. Bo Nix was good. Okay.
I would have had him ahead of Penix.
Yeah. Caleb Williams was pretty good, but And then you had Jaden Daniels who balled. And there's one more
Drake May played really well when he got in.
Who was above average, right? So now you're comparing it to that off 1 year sample size. In 2 more years, 3 of those quarterbacks could be trash. Just like the 2021 class. There was 5 of those guys and almost all of them are bad. So it's just it kind of peeves me when people are like, oh, well, he would have been this in last year's class or this in this year's class. It's like, well, we can't compare. You have to play the board how you play the board. If you don't see the value fit there,
fine, I mean, you can't worry about that kind of stuff. I just think 6 was really low for him.
Yeah, Cam Ward to me would have been.
I would have said 4.
3, maybe 4. Yeah, the big 3: Caleb, Jaden, and Drake, and then Cam Ward. And like you could probably have persuaded me that in college Cam Ward was a better prospect than Jaden Daniels. Obviously, I know he balled out his last year at LSU, and that translated really well to the NFL, obviously. But I don't think 6. Like 6 to me seems really low, and. They do the same thing for Armand Membu. He would have been tackle like 4 last year behind Alt and Latham and Olu and all these guys. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But like, he's probably offensive tackle 1 on most people's boards this year. So like, you just have to play the board how it is. And I feel like people get too caught up in last year versus this year.
Yeah, for sure.
6 minutes gone or 5 minutes gone almost, and there's no pick.
Totally unnecessary.
Yeah, it's all for the PR of it, I guess. They're already talking about Cam Ward and like showing his film now on NFL Network. So my clock just hit 5:30. Where are you at? Just so I know.
5:23.
5:20. Okay, we're like almost synced up. So if this stream
Yeah.
goes down, I'm gonna be bummed. But I obviously know you're dealing with or are you back on NFL.com now? You're not doing.
Yeah,
the YouTube thing?
I'm watching the live stream on NFL.com.
Perfect.
So let's see. Yeah, just at 5 minutes now, and yeah, it's I can't remember why the league said they do this. Why they tell teams to wait? Like, I guess it's not like they need time to talk about Cam Ward. They could have talked about him in the last 3 hours.
Right. Are we doing
who do you think?
Or no?
Anybody you think could surprise? Is there anybody in this top 10 you think nobody's talking about, or very few people are talking about, that could go in the top 10? I think Walter Nolan is a possibility. If a team is, I have no idea what his quote unquote red flags are. I've heard people say there are red flags, and that's why he's going to be a late round 1 guy. Talent wise, I think he's a top 10 guy. Jalen Walker. Now, Chris, you saying you think I don't think that would be a surprise. I think there's a good chance the Jets take him. In fact, that's who McShay mocked to them.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
I think there's a very good chance that happens.
The other one that was rumored and linked to the Jets, that would be the bigger surprise, Jahdae Barron. That's the one to me where it's like, God damn, I really can't.
Not that early, man.
Like, what are you gonna do? Move him to safety, and then you might as well have
taken
Nick and Worry. Like, I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough sell. So that one would definitely surprise me. As far as like other teams, if a player went, honestly, I do think Tet in the top 10 would surprise me.
Gotcha. Yeah, Chris is saying he might be the pick. That's I'm actually tweeted out. The days are blending together now. Either earlier tonight or yesterday, I tweeted something out about Walker. I think he could be. I think edge is a possibility, man. I really do.
Breaking news. Twitter breaking news. The Browns and the Jaguars have agreed to a blockbuster trade.
Wow.
To give Jacksonville the number 2 overall pick, while Cleveland gets number 5 and a massive haul to help now and in the future.
So Jacksonville.
So Gladstone and Liam
Gotta be Travis Hunter, right?
They're making a move for Travis Hunter 1,000%. And Cam Ward just officially became the pick. Let's see. Browns are sending number 2 overall, their 4th round selection 104 and 6th round selection 200 to the Jaguars for number 5 overall, a 2nd round pick at number 36, a 4th round pick at 126, and their 2026 1st round pick. So the Jags give up their 1, 2, and 4 and a future 1 for assumed Travis Hunter.
Wow.
That is
3 spots.
That is huge. I was debating this with my friend like maybe an hour ago, and I said that sounded like a lot to give up when it was just a 2 and a 1. Their 2nd this year and a future 1. I was like, that sounds like too much to move up 3 spots, and they gave up more than that. So,
and Chris says he hopes the Giants take Sanders to screw things up. I don't know if you heard me earlier, Chris. Shefty, Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport, sorry, was on saying that do not expect Shedeur to go 3 to the Giants or 9 to the Saints, which jives with what the other day Todd McShay said the Saints wouldn't take Shedeur at 40. He's like, they don't want him. And he also said the Steelers like him, but they don't like him enough to take him at 21. So if his reporting is accurate, and some of it could be smokescreen, but if his reporting is accurate, then Shedeur is going to be in for a long day. Like I said, maybe the Rams take him and develop him behind Stafford. There was a tweet earlier from Giants beat writer saying that their war room is chaos, and the GM threw a chair earlier today. I don't know. Obviously, don't know if it's true, but
Was that Art
listen, man,
Stapleton?
jobs are on the line, and
Jeez.
if you feel like you can't come to an agreement on a quarterback, that's a little bit scary. That's like, you're trying to save your jobs, and you got Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. The thing is, though, outside of Cam Ward, like, even if you like Shador, is he ready to take you to the playoffs? Like, what's the mandate with the Giants?
Right.
I know they said they got to win. I can't remember if they said they got to make the playoffs. Like, is Shador
Mara
ready to take
kept
that
him
team to
for
the playoffs in year one?
Yeah, I mean, Mara just kept him around on the sake of I didn't want to get rid of them type of thing. Like he didn't want to like break continuity. So you would assume they're on the hottest seat possible entering this draft, which means to me, I'm not taking a guy who's probably not going to see the field a ton in year one.
And even Jackson Dart, like they might be best taking Tyler Shuck at some point, like a 26-year-old who's played a ton of football,
right,
and might be the
exactly.
guy who's most ready to step in and play.
Yeah, give me Tyler Shuck in like the third round to the Giants, and I think the value is a lot better than trying to trade up for Shedeur Sanders. Todd McShay was mentioning it that Daboll is a good quarterback guy to like have his influence on a decision. He said he would probably go Dart in his offense over Shedeur.
Yeah, I saw that. I watched a few minutes of McShay, and I happened to catch that portion.
Yeah, but everything hinges on when the GM wants to take the quarterback for the head coach. The head coach is just the head coach at the end of the day, unfortunately. It's not a Aaron Glenn situation where he's going to have his hands all over every single pick that happens. Daboll is, the number 2 in charge behind Joe Schoen. So Daboll can say, hey, I really love Jackson Dart, but they get to pick 3. They don't have an offer to move back. They don't want to, reach on Dart, and they want to take Abdul Carter. And they do that, and then they try to get back up for Jackson Dart if they can. It's not a matter of Daboll likes Dart. Dart is the pick. So I would say the same thing for any quarterback, really. So it'll be interesting to see. Because
speaking of that, speaking of that dynamic, what do you think? I could be wrong, but I look at the Jets situation, and I think, and look, I'm just guessing. Obviously, I think Moogie's going to give Aaron Glenn what he wants. I think it's going to be a Mangini Tannenbaum type thing. Yeah. I can't see Aaron Glenn saying, "Hey, I want this guy," and Moogie being like, "No." Like, we're taking this guy. It's weird. I don't want to say Aaron Glenn's making the picks, but I feel like Aaron Glenn's going to be making the picks.
Yes, he certainly will be.
He's the stronger personality of the two.
Comes in, yeah.
But that's why I think it's defensive coaches, man. They love their defensive players, and it's not like they couldn't use a D tackle. It's not like they can't use an edge rusher. I've had the conversation with people in recent days who was like, "Oh, we don't need an edge rusher." I'm like, "What are you talking about? You have Will McDonald, and you got JJ coming off a ruptured Achilles. Mm-hmm. That's it. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, and since we talked about it, we've seen these stories that they're meeting with more edge rushers. Admittedly, I said Shamar Stewart several times. I know I was getting stuck on him because the Texas A&M connection.
Sure.
I thought if he's going to take an edge guy, AG is going to be swayed like, oh, let my first guy be an A&M guy. But not necessarily. It could be Jalen Walker. It could be Shamar Stewart. But the thing is, there's not a direction they can go that would really confuse me. Now, look, again, if you go with a corner who's going to be, even if he's a hybrid corner safety, versatile player, I feel like there are other guys who can do that, even if Barron can do it better than anyone. That would surprise me. That would surprise me quite a bit.
You don't want to do Twitter spoilers, right? You want to just wait for the pick to be announced on television?
Yeah.
Perfect. It says the pick is in on my screen. I was just wondering. I don't want to go to Twitter and spoil it or anything like that for the Jets pick.
Is it you mean like in like you know who it is?
Twitter announced it, but it says on TV just the pick is in, yes.
Damn Twitter.
Twitter is so fast. I think it was Jordan Schultz.
Jordan Schultz tweeted out trades are just starting.
Yeah. They said expect explosives in the top 10, and we're immediately seeing fireworks here. So this is a lot of fun. And it takes 1, maybe 2 picks to not be quote unquote chalk. And the Jets have a pick that like could really be a good pick, like Mason Graham or Armand Membu being there. Like, to me, if Mason Graham is there, man, that would just be crazy.
I could see it. Like, and I was saying earlier, and I've said it a few times. If you look at, you talk about blue chip players, right? These guys that are, top of your draft board, elite. There's probably 4, maybe 5 in this class, and he's one of them.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting at 7,
sorry.
No, I'd count him as a very good player,
right?
Yeah. But I'd say it's Genty, and obviously Carter and Travis and Graham. Am I leaving anyone out?
Would you consider Campbell?
No.
Okay.
I consider him very good.
Down with Cam Ward, probably that next year down with Cam Ward.
Yeah.
What about Warren?
Yeah, I'd have Warren up there. He was the one I left out.
Okay,
yeah,
that's 5. And then
Warren's versatility.
Membu.
Nah, too. Too.
Probably next tier down, or even a tier below that. Okay, so we're still at 5. Any of the edge rushers? Michael, Jalen, Shamar.
Oh, here we go. Pick is in. I mean, there's not much mystery to it, but they're announcing it.
Is that Eric Armstead?
I'm not sure.
Oh, Walter Payton winner. Yeah, I think it is. But yeah, I agree. Not a lot of blue chip talent, and there's probably not going to be one on the board for the Jets. And if there is, you have to take them.
Yep. I think we're going to have another guest here in a minute, or another person joining us. Scott Mason of Play Like a Jet. We talked earlier today. He said he'd hop on when he can. Dylan, are you here for the whole? I know you said you might have to go after pick 10. Is that still the case?
I mean, I feel fine now that I took my nap. My headache's gone, so we'll see how it goes. If anything, I might.
Okay, cool. I was just trying to get a feel for. I was just trying to get a feel for if it'd be the 3 of us or the 2 of us. So let me just shoot them the link real quick.
It could be the 3 of us for a bit. I like I said, I might just hop off for like 10 minutes just to grab a quick snack to eat real quick, so I'm not eating on camera. I know we get comments about us drinking on camera, so God forbid I was eating on camera. But yeah, no, I'm cool. I'll see how it goes, but I'm sure I can hang for most of the night.
All right,
I got
cool.
work tomorrow, but it's Friday.
Yeah, I took 4 days off work.
Travis Hunter smacking the Jaguar symbol coming out of the tunnel. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Tweets say they're going to play him on offense and defense, announced as a wide receiver / defensive back.
Well, I mean, look, the dude said he'd rather retire than not play both. Is there a team that would be dumb enough to be like, oh, we're not going to use him in both? Not full time.
What do you do, though? How do you play this out?
For me, I said all along, corner, primary, receiver, secondary. But I forget who it was the other day or a couple weeks ago. Made a really good point. They were like, I'd have him at my, a number 1 corner and primarily red zone at receiver because let him make plays in the biggest spots, 3rd and long in red zone. Otherwise, sit him. As in terms of receiver. So I would be all for that.
Even Nick Saban today was asked, and he said, I think you play him full-time at defense, and you have a package of plays for him on 3rd down in the red zone where you're able to utilize him as a receiver. He's like, it's very hard to be a part-time player on defense because hypothetically, you have Brandon Stevens and Sauce Gardner. They're your primary boundary corners, and you have Michael Carter in the slot. You're telling me you're going to take one of those guys off the field on 3rd down to put in Travis Hunter? To me, that's a hard sell. Whereas it's let's pull our 3rd receiver off the field and put Travis on, and then we could be good. We could be cooking. So
right.
And him and Brian Thomas Jr., as my camera keeps going out, him and Brian Thomas Jr. together in certain packages, that's fun.
Yeah, for sure. That's Brian Thomas is something else. He was I remember thinking last year if they move back, grab that guy. He'd be a nice pick, and he was a hell of a player.
Was better to Joe Douglas though. Jeez.
Yeah.
Biggest don't tell us your draft strategy after the fact ever. Don't tell us.
Yeah. The thing is, though, I think a lot. I mean, every team says this guy was
They
our
have
top
to,
guy. This guy was the
yes,
next
they
guy
have
on
to
our
hype him
board.
up, and he was the guy we
Yeah.
always wanted.
But to
Yeah.
say best receiver on our board, that was stupid.
In that class with Neighbors and BTJ and all those guys, yeah.
Yeah,
And Marv, yeah.
I understand hyping guys up, but I mean, it's a
34-year-old
big
general
it's a
manager.
big year for Malachi Corley for the Jets
Oh,
because
yeah.
really, you look at his lack of production, you just do not see guys who fail to that level as rookies who go on to have good careers.
Right.
It almost never happens.
Giants absolutely sprinted the card up. Their
Really?
pick is
Oh wow,
already
pick is in already.
No. And once again, Twitter's on top of it.
Are they really?
Yeah, it's that fast.
Should we just
There's
go
gotta
with
be
the tweets?
somebody. There's got to be somebody in the war room of like all these teams that like just texts it out to Jordan Schultz or one of these main guys just to put it out there immediately. So it's up to you. I don't care. I'm not going to look at it for the Jets because I want to.
I just saw it. If you want to, if you want to go over it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty chalk. Abdul Carter.
It makes sense. Abdul Carter to the Giants. That's when I talked to someone about this recently, with all the talk of Shedeur possibly falling. Because the talk was kind of the Giants have to take Shedeur. They got to get a quarterback. And I said honestly, I don't follow the Giants closely enough to know what their defense is like as a whole. But if they feel if they're good enough that they feel like Abdul Carter can be the difference between making them going from good to great, and then you hope you can win 8, 9, 10 games with Jameis and Russ, like I could live with that. Let me see if Scott's here. I don't know if he's joining us on audio
I don't see his
only.
Camera yet, so he's probably just.
Yeah, let me ask him if he's doing audio only.
Yeah,
I'll shoot him a quick message here.
Awesome. Yeah, I think their defense. I mean, it makes sense. They have Brian Burns. To me. Did I freeze? Okay, no. The thing to me is, do the Giants now trade Kayvon Thibodeau to come back up into round one like the rumors have been? Damn, I can't.
Yeah, that was what's his name? Dan Orlovsky said that an hour or two ago.
Oh, was that Dan? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if he was first to say it, but I only had that coverage on for a few minutes, and that was one of the few things I heard. Was Orlovsky say maybe you move Thibodeau? I mean, I would think you would want to pair Thibodeau with Carter, but again, if you don't have enough chips,
Burns, yeah. Damn, this fucking camera.
Yeah, but he's Abdul Carter is just to be. It's funny. I actually had this flashback. I know I referenced the Spielman podcast quite a bit, but Abdul Carter, even as an off-ball linebacker, watching him at Penn State a couple of years ago, I was like, this dude is a monster. And that was before I knew they were moving him to edge. And they were doing an episode with the first pick, Ryan Wilson and Spielman, and their producer, this guy named Debo. He's a Pennsylvania guy, so he likes the Eagles. He likes Penn State, and they were talking about a tackle. I forget which tackle they were talking about. And Spielman was like, "Yeah, I don't know how good he is. I watched him against Penn State the other day, and number 11 was throwing him all over the field." And I said, I was like, dude, number 11 is Abdul Carter. And Spielman clearly at that point wasn't familiar with him, and the producer, the Penn State fan, came on, cut in with the mic, and he's like, yeah, number 11 is a first round pick next year, Rick. Like it's exactly what I was saying. I was like, yeah, it's okay for that guy to throw you around because he's gonna throw a lot of people around.
Yeah,
and now he'll do it for the Giants.
The Micah Parsons comparisons are not going to stop anytime soon. They both were number 11. They both went to Penn State. Scott said he's having trouble with his camera, so
he just messaged me.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll try to get that working.
Yeah, but that'll be interesting if they do decide to move Thibodeau to come back up tonight, assumingly for their quarterback, right? I was a big fan of Thibodeau in the beginning of the draft process. I ended up coming back to Sauce being my pick, but Thibodeau was definitely the guy that was like next on my board. And
it's tough though, just like same. And sorry, not to cut you off, but same case with the Jets with Brees. Like, I mean, I guess edge does have a lower hit rate, so you might be able to move Thibodeau. It's just a deep edge class. So if I'm a GM, if I'm an owner, I'm looking at saying, are we going to trade for this guy who's a year away from a monster contract when everyone on ESPN is telling me this is a deep edge class and we can get one in the first, second round?
Yep. The pick is not even on TV, and Twitter has it for the Patriots. Jordan
Wow.
Schultz, man, whoever his connections are, pay them more money. I'll wait for you to
No
see it
kidding.
if you want to announce it.
I don't see it, but go ahead and you can say it.
Will Campbell, the worst
There you
kept
go.
secret in the NFL. The
Yeah,
Patriots
no
were
surprise.
all over him. Vrabel absolutely loved Will Campbell. That was my offensive tackle one, my offensive lineman one. I was kind of hoping he would slip a little bit, but it didn't seem likely once the Patriots steam really picked up. It didn't seem like they were going to go for Membu over Campbell. So now they have a guy who could potentially play 3 positions for them.
Let's see.
Not at the same time, obviously, but he could play left tackle, right tackle, left guard potentially. So there's a lot of versatility with Campbell.
Let's see here. So
I guess it does make sense for the Browns to move out because of all the picks they gave for Deshaun Watson. So, like, we shouldn't really be surprised that they're trying to recoup picks, and Andrew Berry is trying to get back in good graces with ownership by trying to acquire more picks for the future.
Yeah, let's we're bringing Scott Mason on. He's having issues with his camera, but we're going to see if his mic's working okay. Play like a Jet, Scott Mason. Let's see. Scott, are you there?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We just can't see you.
I'm like John Cena. You can't see me. Yeah, by the way, if it's cool with you guys, let's do this the old-fashioned way. Let's not reveal the picks until they come out on TV. That way anybody that's watching along with us doesn't get the spoilers or anything like that, you know?
It's funny.
Yep.
That's what we did last year, and these last 2 picks we did it, but I forgot that was the reason why.
Right?
Yeah, let's stick with that.
Yeah, last year people in the chat were spoiling it. So like it's like a pick a situation. It doesn't really matter.
Pick your poison.
I agree.
Yeah.
Especially with the Jets pick. I was definitely not trying to look at Twitter because
I want to wait for that.
Get that raw reaction like the Will McDonald pick and even the Fashanu pick last year. We had kind of a mixed reaction between myself, Glenn, and Chris. I was very happy. I think Glenn was happy, and I think Chris was happy, but I know it wasn't their number 1 choice last year in the draft. So it is going to be interesting. Now we might lag out and shut this whole thing down if Jedi Barron's the pick, but we'll see what happens.
Hey, you be nice to my Texas Longhorn boy. You be nice to him. Yeah, listen, man. The thing that's great about this, and I mentioned this to Glenn the other day, you've heard Jade Barron, you've heard Tyler Warren, you've heard Kelvin Banks, you've heard Armin Membu. You've heard Jalen Walker. Who am I missing? There's somebody else,
Golden.
Right? We've heard everybody. So in a way, it's good because this means the Jets are keeping everybody on their toes. I'm curious now what happens because what do the Browns do at number 5? Do the Browns then go and take Genty? Is this a spot where maybe the Bears jump up and maybe the Browns trade down a second time? And then here's the other question. If the Browns do like Shedeur Sanders, and I don't know if they do, if they trade down twice, do they then go, you know what? Screw it. We'll take him here at number 10 or Jackson Dart, whoever. Do they do that if they trade down with the Bears from 5 to 10 and the Bears jump up for Ashton Genty? So this is going to be a really interesting spot. If you're the Browns, this is a really cool opportunity because you're actually in a spot. We've heard so many times that teams don't want to trade up. You're in a spot where you could load up on picks for next year.
Because a lot of the talk has been that the Bears want to move up and grab him. If they think there's even the most remote chance that the Jets will take Genty with the Breece Hall talk,
well, what about the Raiders?
Compelled to do it.
Yep.
Or the Raiders.
Yeah.
If the Browns
that's true.
their way to 10 and still get a very good player, which they will likely do, I agree, Scott. That would be the best course of action for them because, like I said before, they need to recoup picks from that whole Deshaun Watson thing. So if you're able to get 2 trade downs and you go from 2 to 10, and you're still able to get the guy of your choice, whether it's the offensive tackle or wherever, the edge guy that they want, yeah, man, you gotta finesse the board as best you can. I was hoping we would trade down with Chicago, but because we're after the Raiders. I don't know how likely it is, but the Browns would make a lot of sense. That's a good point there.
I think if Gent's on the board at 7, maybe. But I just get the feeling that the Bears or whoever wants Gent is not going to want to chance it. They're going to want to jump the Raiders and go to 5. But this is a really good opportunity for the Browns because, like you said, they've really got to reload from all those picks they gave up for Watson. And then you wonder, do they load up on picks for next year? And then it becomes a situation where they're trying to build the team out so that they grab a quarterback next year, or do they use all these picks and then load up and grab whether it's Sanders or Dart or Milrow or something like that? So the Browns are going to be a very fascinating watch right now. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they jump back a second time.
Yeah.
And this is what are you? Okay, that's right. You saw the pick on Twitter. I was like, why is Goodell just now coming up?
We did do the Patriots pick right before Scott got on. So we are a bit ahead there, but no news on 5 yet. I haven't looked at my phone, so I don't know.
Don't look, Dylan. Let's be surprised together.
It's the notifications that kill me because I have like 23 people tweet notifications. So like whenever they tweet, my phone just lights up. So I had to put it down away from my screen. So we're not looking at anything. We're too close to the Jets pick now. Like if they're already that far ahead, oiling the picks, they probably know the Jets pick already.
Yeah. I'm not gonna go back onto Twitter now before the Jets pick.
Yep. So what are your thoughts on Campbell to the Patriots, Scott? Were you a fan of Campbell for the Jets, or did you believe more of the arm length hype that he wasn't going to be a tackle? So what was your thoughts of him going at 4?
It's funny because I heard of all people Joe Douglas on with Todd McShay the other day, and they were talking about Will Campbell, and they basically said something that a lot of people have been saying, which is you looked at what happened to Joe Thuney in the Super Bowl when they had to move him to tackle, and the Eagles took major advantage of the arm length issue, and it's a copycat league, and you have to wonder if this is going to be a problem potentially for the Patriots. Now, the good news for the Patriots is I think Will Campbell's going to be really, really good. Now, that may not be a tackle. Maybe he ends up being a really good guard the way Thuney was. But either way, at least they're getting an offensive lineman that will help them protect Drake May because they had the worst offensive line in the league. I think they were in a really tough spot. I'm sure they would have loved to have traded back and still maybe gotten one of the other offensive linemen. But it just seems like there wasn't a ton of action to go up to number 4. So they sort of were in a spot. I think McShay was joking about this. Everybody he talked to said, I get it. I might even do it myself if I was in that spot, but I hate it because he's not worth the 4th pick.
No, that's fair. When you look at their hour lads, Vidarian Lowe being their starting left tackle is very uninspiring, to use a cliche term. And I know they have Morgan Moses on the right tackle spot. Their left guard, I believe, is like Leighton Robinson or something like that. So it's not a very good offensive line, like you pointed out. So even if it doesn't work out as a true left tackle for Will Campbell, you have a 60% chance that he's going to find a spot on your line, whether it's left tackle, right tackle, left guard. You would have obviously loved to move down, but I feel like we're going to see a run on offensive linemen, whether it's, from pick 6 to 12 or maybe picks 18 to 24. I feel like there's going to be a big grouping of offensive linemen that go. So not surprised that it was the pick, but yeah, I think if they could have traded down, that would have been.
And the Browns pick is in.
Okay, cool.
Well, we're not going to look at it. But we will.
No, I'm just saying that's the status on NFL.com is the pick is in.
Yeah, I'm busting your balls, but I will say we could talk about the possibilities here if they stay at the pick because we did talk about them. Oh, Will Campbell in tears, 6'5", 300 and something pound man.
Awesome.
Listen,
Campbell in shambles.
Great, a great moment.
But look, these are lifelong dreams coming true. Some of these guys break down.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's wearing the Kyron Lacy pin. I want to point out because that's awesome. He's repping the LSU guy. I know it was a sad situation all around involving Kyron Lacy, but it's nice that the LSU kids are showing some love.
Well, so now if the pick is in, I guess that means the Browns didn't trade it.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it, that the pick was in.
Fun, dude. Ever since you said Genty, that would be a lot of fun. I know Chubb has had his struggles.
Well, what about Mason Graham on that D line?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, him and Myles Garrett. I don't want to see that. Oh man.
That'd be interesting. There's a lot of ways they could go here.
maybe wide receiver. I mean, but then wouldn't you have just stuck and picked Travis Hunter?
Well,
That's
unless the
Not if,
idea was
not
just
if you
to
want to
get all
load
the
up on
extra
picks.
picks.
right. Once you justify the extra picks, you can kind of get away with it. Yeah, this is definitely going to be an interesting one for Cleveland because I don't know where the hell they could go. They don't.
All right,
they're-
here's an interesting one though. If Ashton Gentee's on the board at 7, especially with all the rumors we've been hearing about Brees Hall, is that something that actually could happen?
the Jets taking Genty, or
Yeah, the Jets taking Gentee if he's there at 7.
yeah, I could see it.
It'd be surprising.
Yeah,
This could be a thing where you hear it all the time, right? Teams have deals in place depending on how the board falls. The Jets may have already agreed to a deal for Brees Hall, but they got to make sure they get Gentee first. So it is a possibility.
Or
Yeah.
maybe they've got to deal with the Bears where it's like, okay, if Gentee's there at 7. I mean, like I said, I thought that they would try, but you know what? This could be a situation. You remember with Jermaine Johnson, the Jets called like all these teams all the way up to like 14 or something. So maybe the Bears have just been trying all these teams. They couldn't get a deal done with Cleveland. And maybe if Gentee's still there at 7, they call the Jets. Who knows? Let's see who the
But now
Browns pick. Goodell's at the podium.
Okay, cool.
Mason Graham. How about that?
Wow.
There you go. Great
I'm
first name,
bummed.
by the way.
There you go.
Great first name, yes, sir. Oh, that's a little bummy because he was my number 1 choice for
Terrible
the Jets.
last name. Terrible last name. But
Yeah.
really good first name.
I will say this though, guys. If you think about it, right? Graham is such a funny player in the sense that like his tape is really good, but nothing about him screams top pick. Like he doesn't have the measurables, he doesn't have the analytics. He's not like a elite athlete, but he just goes out there and kicks butt.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
film
he's,
overtakes all the I guess gray area with the analytics for me. Like the quick first step, that twitch to him, like they're showing on the screen, the leverage that he plays
Yeah.
with. It's so much fun, man. Like
Yeah.
I would have loved to see it. I think this is a bit of a surprise in my opinion.
Wow, Raiders pick is in.
Just due
Wow.
to it being the
Could-
Browns.
Could it be Ashton Gentee here at number
If
6?
it's
This is
quick.
going to get really interesting.
I
now.
think it's
If it's-
Gentee or Ted McMillan.
Yeah, if it's this quick of a pick, it's got to be one of the more chalky picks. But this makes sense for the Browns as to why they didn't move back because
you know what? You know what's funny though?
Graham wasn't there at 10.
Everybody thought that Graham was going to go 5th, and he did. It just
Just to
wasn't
the
to the
different-
Jaguars.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Pete Carroll, you see the tweet Pete Carroll sent earlier? I had no idea.
Yeah,
what it
well,
was.
you know what somebody said, and it was pretty funny. I forget who it was. They said Will Smith, when he was the Fresh Prince, lived with the Banks family. The pick is Kelvin
Yes.
Banks.
Yes.
Was that Will Smith in that I didn't
the
recognize the
magnifying
movie
glass
or the
was.
actors.
Well,
Yeah.
the
Again-
first one was Will Smith, and so
Okay.
everybody
The
joked
magnifying
about the
glass of
Banks
Will
family.
Smith. Yep, and then he did.
That
there
could
was
be
the,
it then.
The guns from The Office, which somebody said like a Texas standoff. So again, Texas Banks. And then he did a third one, which was Michael B. Jordan and somebody else in the
Friday
Sinners
Night Lights.
movie. Oh, was it Friday Night Lights? Okay, I wasn't sure. I didn't understand the
No,
movie reference.
I'm just thinking of Michael B. Jordan, but I mean, I think what's really going on is Pete Carroll screwing with people.
Oh yeah, he does this all the time. He's done
Yeah.
this before, so like,
Yeah.
we're not. Yeah, I agree.
I don't think
It's,
there's anything to read into. I think Pete Carroll's just screwing around with people. And by the way, anybody that texts me what the Jets did is getting punched in the face. I'm just letting anybody who's listening to this and knows me and hears that, do not text me or DM me what the Jets are going to do. I will not like it. Don't do it.
So
Yeah,
okay,
no.
guys. So knowing, well, we don't know. Once the Raiders pick, we'll talk about what we want based on who's there.
I think it's Membu or Gentee. That would be my guess for the Raiders.
It'd be
I
interesting
can see,
though.
man. Well,
Be interesting
didn't
though if they picked somebody else and then the Jets have like a plethora of options.
If they had like the full gambit of people,
I know
like,
Delmar
Campbell and
Glaze
Graham
played
were on, but
pretty well for them last year, the rookie tackle out of Maryland.
It's more.
I don't know
Colton
who the
Miller.
other. What's
Colton
that?
Miller, but Colton
Colton Miller
Miller's
wants a new
looking for a new contract.
No, okay, so it could be.
Mhm.
How about this? What if the Raiders take Tyler Warren and they're just like, screw it, we're just gonna have like every tight end.
And Trevor Sikkema has
Dude.
not joked about it, but mocked him to the Raiders, and like he kind of like made up good point. Not made up good.
They
points,
said
but made
Mayer
good
was available
points.
via trade. He's another guy who could get traded today. Maybe
Yeah.
Mayer gets dealt and they take Warren.
Okay, guys, how about this? Who says no? Brees Hall for Kayvon Thibodeau.
Well, I don't think. I think the Giants say no.
I think the Giants say no if it's a straight up, but like Brees plus. Yeah.
If and with the
Brees
talk
plus
of
like an
Dallas, I
A3
was like,
asset.
what? I was like, could you get Ferguson in a trade for Brees and a late pick?
I'll be honest though, I don't think there's any way that the Jets would want Thibodeau. He just doesn't strike me as an Aaron Glenn type of player.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
I agree.
exactly. With
Yeah,
what
I
Aaron
agree.
Glenn is trying to build, I think the me first guys are going to have a hard time with him.
Yeah.
You know who
From-
was
from
an Aaron
certain-
Glenn type of player though? Aaron Glenn, who was picked 31 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. Did I ever tell you that story? It's when I had a buddy who was in the White Sox system. Did I tell you this one? It was he was in A ball with the White Sox, and
Okay.
they trained in Sarasota, Florida, and I lived in Bradenton, Florida.
Wait
So
a
when they
second,
came
Glenn.
down,
Before we get to that story, Goodell is at the podium here.
is he
shoot,
okay?
my
Not on
headphones.
my TV. How
Yeah,
far
I'm
behind
looking
you
at
am
the
I?
panel.
Me too.
Pick is in,
Ashton
but it's the
Genty,
panel.
folks.
Wow.
So we're
Man.
so basically every pick has been exactly what we thought. It's just that Graham went fifth to a different team and Hunter went second to a different team. But now the Jets are sitting there. The two tackles are on the board. You've got Jalen Walker,
McMillan,
you've got Taylor
Membu.
McMillan, you've got Tyler Warren. So they've got a lot of options here, and it's a shame because you would have. Although, listen, there is talk, I guess, that maybe the Colts would want to trade up for Tyler Warren here. That would be a fun scenario for the Jets. What if the Jets were able to move back with the
I love
Colts?
it.
But I have a feeling that's not going to happen. So they do have
Yeah.
some decent options here. But listen, if they can move back. Or listen, even if the Bears, there was talk about the Bears liking Tyler Warren. Even if the Bears, if they could get the Bears to move up a little bit, that would be cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was gonna
anybody
say,
at this. I mean, that's the thing. I always get my hopes up, and I envision scenarios where they can trade down. It just never happens.
No. Except
I
last
flirted
year,
a
they traded
scenario.
down a pick.
Yeah, I flirted
But
a scenario.
I mean,
a
like,
couple
and
weeks
get
ago.
like a haul, not like
Right.
an extra seventh.
Yeah, no,
Right.
that's probably not going to happen. I
I
love
flirted a
Genty
sce-
though.
I flirted a scenario at the beginning of the month where they traded back with the Chicago Bears at 10 and they were able to get pick 72. So is just 1 third-round pick enough for you to move back 3 spots knowing what the board looks like currently?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
I think so for
because
sure. Yeah.
this is
You
how
got
I look at it.
Membu, Banks, Warren, Tet. Like that's 4 players right there. So
And Jalen Walker. So one of them is
Jalen
going to be
Walker, you're
there.
guaranteed one of those 5 players, absolutely. So I guess it would just depend on how they would stack it. But if I was able to get an extra 3rd-round pick, I would love that for the Jets.
Or even Colston Loveland, by the way. There's
Yeah,
another
he
one.
should be in
here.
consideration
Yeah.
too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Matthew
funny 'cause
Golden is
everybody
probably in
was talking-
consideration.
Everybody's talking about Warren, but if you looked at all the big boards, and again, we don't know what the NFL boards look like. Jeremiah and Brugler and McShane, all these guys, they had those two ranked very closely. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, yeah. It's a splitting of hairs. I know the scheme would probably point more towards a Tyler Warren type of guy, but
Yeah.
if you're going to tell me that Colston Loveland is the pick and they have a plan for him on offense as their number 2 pass catcher outside of Garrett Wilson, completely sold.
Well, I'll say this, though. Colston Loveland is a lot like Sam Laporta, and we all saw what Sam Laporta did in Detroit. So you never know.
Yeah.
That's very fair.
Right now, look at Ashton Genty. Oh man, he's gonna be such a star. This guy's an absolute killer. It's funny because you heard all this stuff. The Raiders are not gonna pick Genty, and then they pick Genty.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's a hell of a player. That's some good players on that offense now.
184.5 yards per game last year.
Dude, he had almost 2,000 yards after contact. That's insane.
Yeah, that's insane.
And he had 500 something receiving yards in 2023. So for people saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
his pass game production is not there," they just didn't need to throw him the ball because when they handed it,
Why
to
would
him,
you? He's
You
averaging
play the
13
safe bet.
yards a carry. Why are you going to throw it and risk an
the Jet-
interception?
Exactly.
The Jets pick is in, by the way. We are not going to
Oh, let's
look,
go.
but the Jets
No,
pick
we're
is
not
in.
looking. We're not looking.
All right.
So apparently they
Let's-
did not trade down. I have it on good authority that it is not going to be one of the 6 guys that got picked already. So
I was like, "Where the hell are you going with this, Scott?
Well,
what are you
because
sourcing us?"
okay, so let me tell you a quick story. I forget what year it was. Maybe it was 95 or 96, whatever year Tony Baselli was picked. So I was in attendance and there was a commercial break. And so they announced the pick on camera. They announced the pick off camera, and then when they went back on camera, they announced it again. So then the whole rest of the night, anytime the commissioner came to the podium, the guy in front of us kept yelling, "Tony Baselli, Tony Baselli." So
we got to make sure we all get it separately because I know our timing's off a little bit. So
Yeah, every
Yeah,
time
yeah,
Scott
if-
says
if
the
I
pick is in
see-
on his screen, I refresh mine to try to like catch up to where he is.
yeah, if I
Yeah.
see them announce it, I won't say anything until you guys see it. So don't worry about
Perfect.
it.
Yeah, so the last person gets the reaction. Cool. Oh,
Yeah, don't-
this is nerve-wracking now because there are so many players that are going to be fine picks, you know, in my mind, and it's like now which one do they actually choose? We're here.
Yep.
Freaking 11.
I mean, it would be it's almost impossible, but I guess it's almost impossible for them
Don't
to take
say
someone
Glenn.
we haven't discussed.
Don't say it, Glenn. Don't say it because you know the minute you say that, it's not going to be impossible.
And we're on a commercial break. God damn it.
We've talked about so many guys that if they took someone we haven't discussed, that would be insane.
I think it's going to wind up being somebody off the beaten path now because you jinxed it, Glenn. You
Ooh,
absolutely
ooh.
jinxed it. It's going to
Shamar
be
Stewart?
somebody weird. Yeah, Shamar
Walter
Stewart.
Nolan.
Walter Nolan. Yeah, exactly. We couldn't pass him up. The talent was undeniable.
I mean, Walter Nolan is worthy of that spot, but there's apparently red flags.
When Walter Nolan goes to the 49ers at 11 and he becomes one of the most ridiculous players in the league, yeah. It's going to be like, damn it.
I just think it's funny because there's a lot of people that are going to flip out no matter what the pick is, and we all know.
Oh yeah, of course. But there's some people, no matter who it is, it's going to be the greatest pick ever, and that's exactly who they should have taken.
Yeah, like if they take Tyler Warren, for me personally, that says that you need to thread a needle with your trenches in rounds 2, 3, and 4 at some point. Whereas if you go offensive tackle, it's like, okay, I can get down with the pass catchers in the day 2, early day 3 range for you to take instead of Warren. But I know people that say the opposite and think you can get your tackle in round 2. So it is very hot and cold with the fan base.
Just remember what Aaron Glenn said, and Muji said this as well. It's about adding the best pieces. This is a long-term vision. It's not about 2025. So with that in mind, I think the best move here would be to take whoever it is they think is the best player available. So now listen, maybe that's Tyler Warren. I think one thing that you have to think about, obviously, with Tyler Warren is you lose that advantage in terms of the rookie contract because he immediately becomes one of the higher paid tight ends in the NFL. Whereas if you take somebody at a more premium position, and I'm doing the quote marks with my fingers that you can't see, you get a much better value in that regard. So you have to believe that guy is elite. But if they do believe he's elite, then maybe that's where they go. There's a variety of options. I mean, like we said, Warren, there's Walker, there's the 2 tackles that are still on the board as we talk about this. They're showing Will Johnson on TV. I don't think he's going to be the pick. Imagine if it's Jahdae Barron. I think a lot of Jets fans would go insane.
Yeah, and remember, again, we talked about this before, Scott, before he came on. I think Aaron Glenn is probably the guy who's going to be the driving force behind the picks, even with Muji being the GM. But worth mentioning, Rick Spielman, and I've said this a few times, Rick Spielman did say late in the year on his podcast that he believed Tyler Warren had gotten to a point where you can now, he entered that top 10 territory. So there's a big voice in that room advocating for that, which is funny, though, because another one of Spielman's red flags is guys with only 1 year of production, which is also Warren.
Roger Goodell is coming to the podium. I won't say who he's going to say.
I'm refreshing to see. I did notice when the Jets were doing on the ticker, like the added free agents, Aaron Glenn was number 1.
Okay. I'm not going to say who it is.
All right, it
but
like a good reaction though.
It is definitely not a surprise. Let's just say that it is somebody we were talking about. There you go. So far it's been a chalk draft. So for weeks leading up to this, we had heard, right, that the top 7 guys in this order, that it was going to be number 1, Cam Ward, number 2, Travis Hunter, number 3, Abdul Carter, number 4, number 4 was going to be Will Campbell, number 5 was going to be Graham, number 6 was going to be Gentil, and number 7 was going to be Membu, and that's exactly how this played out. The only variation is that it was the Jaguars going up to 2 to grab Hunter, and the Browns moving back to 5 to take Graham. So it's gone exactly how everybody thought for weeks. It wasn't until the last few days when everybody was like, well, okay, I don't know if it's going to go this way. I have to figure that if they don't trade out, the Carolina Panthers are taking Jalen Walker here. There's
I was
just
just
been
gonna
too
Yeah,
much
that's
noise.
that's been the talk for a while now, and I think the only I haven't really heard any knocks on Membu. I brought it up a couple times because there were some, you had those people saying, "Oh, he's a workout warrior." Nobody was talking about this guy before he blew up the combine. I actually started a thread on Jet Nation weeks before the combine, having not watched Membu. And one day I was watching Mizzou, and I think I was watching Brady Cook again because I'm a big Brady Cook guy. And Membu jumps out at me, and I'm like, and just play after play after play. And so I started a thread on the forums at Jet Nation, having heard no one talk about him. I'm thinking, well, he can't be a top first round guy because no one's talking about him there. So I'm like, oh, I think this guy you can get at the top of the second round. He looks like a really good player, and I'm going to watch some more. And someone, to their credit, said in the forums, like, dude, this guy's a first rounder. And I said, well, I'm going to watch some more. And I came back a few days later and I was like, absolutely, this guy could be a first rounder.
Look,
then the combine hits, and it's like, now he's top 15, and within days he enters the conversation as top 10. But there were a lot of people like, nobody knew who this guy was. Nobody was talking about it. And I forget who it was, Scott. Somebody tagged me in a post because somebody said it, and they were like, oh, here's Glenn talking about Membu like a month before the combine, saying that because I'd said in a tweet, I like Membu and Ursary at tackle. I think Membu could be a first round guy. So some people, he didn't just burst on this. I don't want to hear that he's a workout warrior. I don't want to hear that he wasn't a first round conversation until he
Glenn,
had this thing at the combine.
He was all SEC. So
yeah, I get that. I'm just saying there are those. You're muted, by the way, Dylan. But there are those who feel like, or who'd been saying for weeks, this guy wasn't being talked about. Why is he now in the conversation out of nowhere? And that's not the case. I mean, granted, he wasn't being talked about the way Campbell was, but there were those of us, and there were people who said this kid's a first round talent. And now you've solidified the O-line. You've got Olu. You've got your guards with, you added Simpson last year who played well. You got AVT, you got Tippmann, and now you got Membu. And this just kind of goes to what it looks like the Jets are going to be, which whether fans like it or not, it's a dirty word in some houses, but they're probably going to be a ground and pound team. You've got a running quarterback and a really deep running back room.
What it comes down to here, I think, is that you really had to be considering. I mean, to me, the decision comes down to 3 players, right? It had to be either Membu, Banks, or Jalen Walker. I don't think that. Look, I know a lot of people really love Tyler Warren. I just don't see it. I've said this many times. If you're taking a tight end at number 7, I think he absolutely has to be like Brock Bowers, basically. Otherwise, you're not getting the right value. And I like Warren. I think he's going to be a good player. I just don't see him as that type of guy. And maybe he proves me wrong. I think Loveland is right there with him. So if you're in a position where you think there's 2 tight ends that are pretty close, I mean, you're not talking about a generational player. And so when you look at this, you go, all right, Jalen Walker is definitely in the conversation if you think he can be special. But obviously there's downsides with him. He's a smaller guy. He has shorter arms. He's a hybrid. So you have to have a specific plan for him. But I think with Membu, the question, and Bruce Feldman wrote an article where he quoted a whole bunch of people from across the league. The question is, yeah, he's a smaller guy. Does he project better at guard over the life of things? But look, you've heard a lot of people say this. Daniel Jeremiah, plug and play right tackle. Dane Brugler, plug and play right tackle. And so clearly the Jets agreed. And I think ultimately you look at this and say, well, yeah, they went offensive line last year. And yeah, they went offensive line in 2020 and 2021. But look at what the Lions were built on. And so now you say, okay, let's say Justin Fields does or doesn't work out. Either way, you've got that line fortified. I joked with my friend Kayla Pace, who is now working for the Mets, and she's a proud Southern Carolina alum. I said, hey, she asked me what I think before the draft, and I said, look, I would go O-line or defense. I think it might be boring, but you got to fortify that offensive line for when the Jets draft Lenore Sellers next year. And she started laughing. So listen, you can't dislike the pick. I think there are a lot of people that'll say it's boring, but who cares?
Yeah, But was it boring when they took DeBrick and Mangold, and how did that turn
Yeah.
out?
No, well,
Right.
was it boring when they took Penei Sewell over Jamar Chase, or was it boring when they was it boring when they took I'm sorry, did they or whatever, rather than one of the receivers, whichever one, Devontae Smith, whoever. I can't even remember what the order of the picks was anymore. But the point is, like, it's okay. Like, the Lions dominated with that offensive line. The Eagles dominate with their offensive line. All the best teams have strong offensive lines for the most part. So it's okay. Look, if they weren't going to go with a quarterback here, this worked out well. And listen, it would have been nice to see them trade down, but you knew that the odds were not great. By the way, Roger Goodell is at the podium,
Yeah,
and let's
he's
see.
announcing that. I got the Panthers pick spoiled because I wanted to see what Twitter was.
Oh, first curveball of the night. First
Yeah,
curveball of the night.
I wanted to see what Twitter was saying about Armand Membu, so I went on, and Adam Schefter 4 minutes ago tweeted, Jets head coach Aaron Glenn had a 45-minute FaceTime call this week with Missouri offensive tackle Armand Membu that sealed New York's decision about who to draft in round 1. Membu becomes Glenn's first pick as Jets head coach. And then Jordan
Glenn-
Schultz doubles down and says, I'm told Jets had 2 45-minute Zooms with Armand Membu. Clearly, he sold them on the potential to become the anchor for the next decade.
Well, yeah, but like, Glenn, this is something you and I talked about the other day, right? There's so much more to these picks than just what you see on tape. You have to
Yeah.
see that this guy is going to buy in, that he's going to be part of the whatever it is, right? And that there's so much to that. Tetior McMillan, who just went 8th to the Panthers, by the way,
Yep.
is another one. There's
Crazy.
been all these character questions. So you have to, that's what you have to look into. Are the character issues real and all that?
Yep.
And it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But am I wrong, or did Membu not have a top 30 visit? I don't think he did, right?
I thought he did, but I'm not sure.
I think he did with the Jets, but I'm not
Did he?
entirely sure.
Okay.
I know Ursary did. Maybe he didn't. Maybe
I don't
maybe
think he
didn't.
did. I know Tyler Warren and Mason Graham did. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think that they had a top 30 visit with him.
Yeah, let me look at Dom's. Dom keeps track of it. He does a really good job. Shout out Dom C. I have his
But you
track
know,
right
you
here.
don't listen. You don't need to have top 30 visits. These guys have pro days.
No, no.
There's Zoom calls. There's plenty of times. And
I mean,
so,
you hear all the time. You hear stories about guys that teams don't talk to them at all. Like they see enough
no,
on
they did
film
not.
that they're like, "This is our guy."
They did not have a.
I remember Willie McGinnis talking
Yeah.
about that. He's like,
yeah, well,
Bill Belichick didn't say a word to me before the draft, and the first time I talked to him was when he called to tell me I was the pick.
yeah, and there you go. Dylan just said it. They did not have a top 30 visit with Membu. And listen, when it comes down to it, right? You look at this and you say there are so many opportunities to get to know a player without bringing him in for a top 30 visit. I think, though, the reason they might have done it with Mason Graham is because they probably never thought they had a shot at him. And then when all the rumors started, they're like, oh, damn, maybe we will get him. Jalen Walker's fascinating here. I wonder if he goes in short order. I know the Falcons apparently really like him. So I don't know.
Floor, right?
You would think. And then obviously the 2 tight ends are available. Let me throw this out there at you. I don't think this is going to happen. But if Colston Loveland falls into the 20s, if you're the Jets, do you consider a move?
I guess I would consider.
Do you have the
it.
ammo?
I would consider. Yeah, what's the ammo that you're using to get back into the first
42
round?
and a pick next year.
What
Yeah,
if you flip Brees Hall and use that pick to move up?
I
still stand by. I just don't know how much value he has when you can get a running back in this class. And
Well, but did
I
you
don't know.
see? Did you see? I forget who reported it. They said League Source says that most teams would have Brees Hall graded ahead of every running back in this draft except for Ashton Genty.
Really? Well,
So
that's good.
if that's true, then maybe they could get more
That
than
bodes
we
well.
expect.
Yeah, that definitely helps. I mean, if that's the case, yeah. I would do it for Igbukah before I did it for Loveland, but I would understand the thought process of coming up for a pass catcher.
Yeah, I think Loveland might be a better. Oh wow, the Saints pick is in, and it's Ian Rappaport. Unbelievable! I can't believe Rapp
Wow.
went in the top 10.
Didn't see that coming.
Didn't see that coming at all. But yeah, no. I think Loveland might actually be the better prospect than Igbukah, but there is an argument to be made that a tight end is just not going to impact the game unless it's somebody like Oh wait, now they're showing Shedeur Sanders. Has it all been a smokescreen? Here's where this gets interesting, guys. By the way, quick side note: we keep hearing all these teams that are out on Shedeur Sanders. How many times do we hear things like this, and then it turns out to be BS? So
Yeah, that's well, I tweeted that the other day. I was like, is this all smokescreen, or is this dude going to get drafted on day 2? Like, what's going on? What's his name? McShay was adamant the other day. He said the Saints wouldn't take him at 40. And they're live now at his draft party. Doesn't look like he's on the phone. He looks like he's in a really good mood, but I don't know. I don't know, man. It's once the Derek Carr story came out, I thought, well, there you go. That's where Shedeur's going if he's on the clock or if he's on the board. You're muted again, Dylan. You're muted.
Sorry. What if they took Dart
No,
here?
I
That'd
keep
be
muting myself
interesting.
too, so I can hear this. And Go ahead.
Yeah, I kept every time I refresh, it does the volume on my laptop, so I don't want it to come through the speakers. But what if they didn't? What if they surprised and take Jackson Dart? I know the quarterbacks probably aren't going to go
listen,
this
man.
high, but
Charlie Weiss swears Jackson Dart's a first-round pick, and it's a flavor thing, right? Like McShay was saying earlier, depending on what you're looking for, he's saying what McShay was saying specifically that set Jackson Dart, not set him apart in a better way, but just what made him different from like Shedeur and Cam Ward is the way they like to drift left and right when there's pressure and wait for someone to kind of open, whereas Jackson Dart's going to climb and either take off and run or keep his eyes downfield and throw. Like, if that's the style you're looking for, then maybe that's your guy. But here we go. Goodell's at the podium for me. I don't know what you guys have.
Goodell is at the podium. I have to put the volume on. Scott might have the pick already.
Okay. There you go.
Well, you draft Trevor Penning in the first round a couple years back, and you're doing
Yeah, but he's been
doing the
he's been a
Mekhi-
bust though, hasn't he?
That's
He
what I'm
hasn't
saying.
been
You're
very
doing the
good.
Mekhi Becton thing, and you're chasing the pick years later down the road, and that's kind of what they've been trying to do. And Ramczyk just retired, so.
But it is funny because, again, that was the thing McShay said too, right, about Jalen Walker. Everybody wants him. Everyone wants Walker. Well, he said he could go anywhere. He could go 6, 7, 8. Well, he's not gone at 9. He hasn't gone any of those.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to say Jalen Walker won't be a good player, but I watched him extensively the other day once McShay mocked him there, and there was some rumblings that he would be the Jets pick. To me, and I listen, I say all the time, I don't pretend to be a scout. I don't pretend to know what coaches know and all that. I watched him and I thought, athletic, yes. Clearly watches film, always in the right place, anticipates well. But I didn't see any plays that were like, oh, there's a top 10 pick. There he is, doing things that not many human beings can do. I see him being like a fundamentally sound athletic guy with a good motor. Great. But I honestly, he was the one guy, if the Jets took him. I actually talked to some people today and someone said, how would you feel about Walker? And I was like, there's whispers and fine, but I wouldn't have been excited. Put it that way. I would have been like, taking him to me would have meant I got to wait and see what this guy can do as a pro, because in college, he looked like a good player. He didn't look like oh my God, take this guy in the top 10 player.
Yeah, my favorite game to watch of his was Texas's regular season game. Him and Michael kind of just blew up the backfield on like almost every snap that was a passing down. That really put him on the radar for me when I was watching the Texas wide receivers. I was like, damn, the Texas guys can't get the ball because Quinn Ewers is on the ground.
The crazy thing is, though, he had 6.5 sacks this year. 4 of them came against Texas.
The Bears pick is in, by the way. Do we think that the Bears pick is in?
But I'm saying 4 of his 6.5 sacks came against the same team.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like he was kind of.
He had 2.5 sacks against all others.
Yeah, he was abusing
7th
whoever. Pick? Yeah, whoever he was going against on Texas stayed up late, like dreaming about Jalen Walker across from him, and it clearly got the better of him. But yeah, that's a weird stat. Sorry, Scott. What were you saying?
No, I was just gonna say the Bears pick is in. I wonder if Ben Johnson is gonna be looking for a toy to play with here, because there are quite a few guys that are available. If you're looking for somebody to help Caleb Williams, look, Cole Kmet's not a bad player, but they could still go tight end here. But They could use some help on the defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of possibilities here. I wonder now if some teams start to move a little bit.
Yeah.
Does somebody get nervous about the quarterbacks? But I wonder if this winds up being like that draft a couple of years ago where we hear all this talk about guys moving up for teams moving up for quarterbacks and then nobody does.
Yeah, and that's the thing I said earlier. After that first trade, Jordan Reed said, the trades have just started. Well, looks like they ended too because we haven't seen one since then.
Yep. Jets Cap in the comments here says, do you think the Jets trade back up into the bottom of the first? We were just exploring that, like potentially for Colston Loveland. I said Emeka Egbuka. I think the target type of player would be a pass catcher if they were to do that. Preferably, I would like them to sit at 42. And if somebody slides out of the first round, you have all day tomorrow to reassess your board and you could trade up to 33, 34, 35 to get them. That's kind of the sweet spot for, especially for wide receivers. I think last year that's like where Ladd McConkey went to the Chargers. Deebo Samuel a couple years before that was the 36th overall pick. So that seems to be the hot spot on day 2. So I would be excited if they traded up to like 34, maybe not 28, but I could see a scenario where they feel like they need to.
And the Bears pick is in.
Okay, Bears pick.
Wow, I can't believe it. The Bears just picked the ghost of Walter Payton. I never saw that coming.
Oh, I was like, I thought you were saying. Oh, Scott, you get me every time. I'm gonna fall for it every time you start going like that. Because I know you're a couple of seconds ahead, so I was ready for whatever you were ready to go and say. So he said, "Ghost of Walter Payton." I'm like, that's not Amari and Hampton.
Yeah, no, definitely not Amari.
I was actually wondering about Hampton here because they talk that they want it back for Caleb, but feels early. But I think he's going to be a great one.
Do you see 2 wide running backs?
Oh wow, this is weird. Oh, poor Steve McMichael. They're doing a tribute to Steve McMichael now, who, by the way, was a really made a big impact on professional wrestling as well.
Remarkable contributions to the game and the community will never be forgotten.
Yeah, he passed away. He was in hospice. Man, everybody said he was a really great guy.
Oh man, that sucks.
Terrible. Great player too on that 85 Bears team.
Somebody's got the draft coming through their mic. I just want to make sure we know.
Definitely not me.
It might be Glenn.
Damn you, Glenn. Oh, there you go.
I muted Glenn on my own, so hopefully he.
Oh, okay.
I just don't want to get shut down on YouTube for playing.
I'm muted on here.
No, we can hear it through your thing.
Yeah, we can hear it through your thing.
I'm muted.
No, you're not. We can hear you.
That doesn't make
Yeah.
I.
Oh, here comes the pick.
There it is. There it is. No,
Fans are booing for obvious reasons.
To his community.
Oh wow, there's another one, dude. So all I'll say is what we talked about before just went out the window, and you'll find out what I mean in a second.
Wow.
So
okay,
let's talk about this. Everybody said, "Oh, Tyler Warren." Listen,
yep.
I know that I've been saying for a while, and I know a bunch of others that Loveland is actually better than Warren, and maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But obviously, Ben Johnson agrees.
Yeah, and although he changed his tune during the season, early in the year, probably around week 3, 4, Rick Spielman, because Spielman was the first person I heard say it. Rick Spielman was like, right now, I have him ranked above Warren. And there were people all year, you'd hear people say, I've got him higher on my board. And it wasn't the slam dunk that it was last year with Bowers, where no one in their right mind had another tight end rated above him. This was 2 really good players. They different styles, of course. Loveland, they said, if you're going to compare them to Hall of Fame players, they would say, Warren's closer to Gronk and Loveland's closer to Kelsey. But either way, you're getting a really good player.
Yeah, can I just say how impressed I am with the Jets, though, that nobody had any They kept trying to say Membu, but the Jets threw so many smoke screens out there that nobody had any freaking clue what they. Dude, Tyler Warren's still out there, and we were hearing this morning all these people saying they were taking Tyler Warren.
Right. Yeah. They did a good job of, even though Membu was linked to the Jets based on need and fit and everything like that. It was never like confirmed the Jets like Membu over anybody. And honestly, we heard the opposite. A lot of people were pushing the Tyler Warren over Armand Membu stuff. So, I mean, I had a tweet interaction with Matt Miller of ESPN, and he even said Colson Leveland was his tight end one over Warren for a lot of the reasons that they're talking about on TV. And you've mentioned, Scott. So, like, I'm not terribly surprised by it, but I did expect Warren to probably be the tight end one off the board.
Yeah, I think even though there were people who went either way on that, I would say the majority thought Warren would go first, but there were plenty of people who thought Loveland would, and here he is. He's gone, and now you have another tight end out there on Warren who people thought was going to be gone at 7, and he's going to be on the board at 11.
The fact that in a draft that was considered not that deep or not that strong offensive line wise, 3 tackles went in the top 10.
Yeah, and there was a
and now the
like,
49ers isn't George Kittle having a contract thing?
Yeah, I mean they could go Tyler Warren here, and then here's the question: if they go Tyler Warren, do they shop George Kittle? And if they do, what do you get for him?
Yeah,
Tough to say. I was going to say, how long has he been in the league? He's not super old, right?
He's 30. I think he turns 30 this year, or he's already 30. There was the classic Diana Rossini, your sources are wrong.
Yes, that was tremendous.
I mean, maybe he does want to be the highest paid tight end, or maybe he doesn't, whatever. I thought the whole thing was just funny. I think there's a scenario where they could entertain trading George Kittle. They just traded Deebo Samuel, so they're clearly not approaching it as if this is an ultimate win now scenario. I feel like this was a team consistently in the NFC Championship game, and then they were 7-10. So it's kind of a change for them. So I really think they could go in all directions. I would like to see them go Walter Nolan. And we know Robert Saleh loves his first-round defensive lineman. So, okay, Jets cap says Kittle turns 32 in October, a little bit older than I thought.
Let's jump ahead a pick here, fellas, just out of curiosity.
Sure.
Given the Tyreek Hill situation in Miami, do you think they take Golden?
They could. I mean, they could.
That's not a bad,
Although, I mean, there was talk that they really liked Kelvin Banks, but obviously he's off the board now, and I don't think there's another tackle unless somebody gets pushed up. But you wonder now, does Josh Connerly go higher than we thought because teams are nervous he doesn't make it to the second round? Yeah. Does Arian? I mean, everything you hear was that Ursary would be there in round 2. Is that the case? That, by the way, that's the other thing to consider here, right? We talk about this all the time. You got to anticipate runs. And to Joe Douglas's credit, he did this in 2022. There was a run on receivers. You recall, you had Drake London, then Garrett Wilson. Then right after that, it was Olave and Jamison Williams. So those guys all went in very short proximity. So getting Membu meant that the Jets avoided the run because they could have looked at it and said, well, we might be able to get a tackle later. But what happens if these 3 guys go in the top 10 or whatever? Then all of a sudden, Josh Simmons, all that stuff. So it's sort of interesting how a lot of this is just mental chess. Although, I like the report said, I think they took Membu not just because of the position he played, but because they're convinced that he was the best fit for what they're looking to build.
Yeah, no, I agree. I said in the beginning of the week, maybe late last week, I would expect 8 offensive linemen to go. And then we got a couple tweets, and I don't want to pull up my phone to find the exact tweets, but I believe it was Jordan Schultz, like an hour and a half before the draft started, said, don't be surprised if more offensive linemen go in the first round than are expected. And a couple days ago, somebody else also tweeted saying that if the Jets don't go offensive tackle in round 1, the pick of the litter at 42 is not going to be what they expect. And they did a ton of work, a ton of visits on the day 2 offensive tackle prospect.
Yeah, Ursary. They had Ursary.
Heavily shocked if more than 1 or 2 of those guys are even there at the pick 42. Like, Connerly deserves to be a first-round pick. Ursary is probably a fringe first-round pick at this point. Like, I think there's going to be a lot more coming off the board.
I feel like Ursary to the Chiefs makes so much sense, but I see people saying he's a 3rd rounder.
Yeah, I said 8, and there's been 3 so far.
Listen, what you just said, by the way, is another argument against Tyler Warren because there's tight ends all over the place. I mean, Mason Taylor could be there at 42. You've got Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson, who I think isn't getting talked about enough, and the Jets had a visit with him. I think they sent their tight end coach to his pro day. Gunnar Helm, who obviously I'm a little biased, but the University of Texas. Even Arondé Gadsden II is interesting if you wait a little bit. So there are a lot of options at tight end, and like you said, once you get past Ursery, look, I like Charles Grant a lot, but he's going to take some time. I don't know that he's necessarily a guy that's going to start year one. He's going to take a year probably to develop into a starter. You're looking at slim pickings later on. So there's a variety of reasons why this made sense. I was saying if Mason Graham was on the board, then it becomes a discussion. You could talk me into Jalen Walker as well. But the sensible pick was always either Membu or Banks in this spot, I think.
Yeah, and there are going to be people that feel this way. Michael in the chat saying he doesn't like the pick. He thought it should have been a weapon. He thought it should have been Warren. And look, you're not alone in that take, Michael. There's a lot of people who feel that way. We said at the top, I said there really wasn't a guy rumored to the Jets that I would have minded. Like I see the logic behind all of the options, but I understand that a lot of people feel like it should have been a weapon. I did a mock with Fox Sports Radio and PA a couple weeks ago, and I went with Membu. Even though Tet was my top guy, and everyone today got me thinking maybe it is going to be Warren because, Peter Schrager said it was going to be Warren and some other folks. So it really got me off of where I thought they were going to go. And let's see.
Another curveball.
Surprised. I mean, the position.
Michael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia, goes to the San Francisco 49ers.
It's interesting that they took him over his teammate. It's funny. I was telling you this earlier today, Glenn. This was something that Albert Breer had. They asked all the Georgia prospects in this stretch. I forget who they said it was the general manager. Yeah, I told you this story, but there was a general manager, and they didn't identify who for obvious reasons. But that general manager said that one of the questions the team always asks players they interview is if you had a player that you played with at any point in time that you could take with you to the pros, who would it be? And every single Georgia player that was asked that question answered Jalen Walker. So that's why I thought there was a chance that he could go to the Jets because he just screamed Aaron Glenn player to me.
Yeah, and also go ahead, Dylan. Go ahead.
I was going to say a former Georgia player that kind of people said the same thing about, who's now a couple years in the league, was Nolan Smith. So another undersized edge kind of guy who's plays a little off ball, plays a little on ball. So it is interesting how they keep churning out these players, but
and Nolan Smith became a really good player too.
Yeah, and if everybody's saying Jalen Walker is a high character guy, I mean, I don't know why he's falling, but I mean maybe the smoke was just to get people to come up, and it never really came to fruition. But maybe Atlanta doesn't even need to trade up for him at this point.
It could also be that the Jets really would have considered him if Membu was off the board. I mean, who's to say? We don't know.
100%.
Yeah.
It's so funny because there's always domino effects. We see this all the time. I mean, this is how Aaron Rodgers fell to 24, and there's a lot of.
What I was just gonna say. Yeah. And that's why you really feel for some of these guys because sometimes you do get a situation where a guy might be. What's up? Cowboys made the pick, and Jerry Jones is bear hugging people. So now I'm going to go out on a limb, not really a limb. I think it's Matthew Golden. I think they really like Golden, and he's a Texas guy, and I think that's who they're going with here. But we'll see. I'm curious. It might be. If I was them, their running back situation is a mess. I know it's a deep class, but I feel like Omarion Hampton is another guy worth a first-round pick. I would take him here if I were them.
Sure,
I don't think I'm not saying that is the pick.
Could you come back and get Henderson later, though? Could you come back and get Trevion Henderson later?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I know there's some. To me, Genty is obviously head and shoulders above everyone, but then Hampton to me is the next guy, and then there's a gap between him and everyone else. Not as big a gap.
Oh wow! What a curveball that was! No one expected this. Wow.
Let's see.
My computer is so slow. I'm so behind.
What do you have?
This is the first legitimate stunner of the night, I think. This one shocked me.
Well, no, but think about what happened to them this offseason.
Oh, I get it. It's just I didn't expect him to go this high.
Yeah. Oh, me neither.
Yeah.
But I mean, not
Well,
a bad.
he was being mocked to the Bears early on in the process before they traded for Tooney and
Yeah,
the other guard. But again, it kind of died off.
Jonah
So
Jackson.
yes, thank you. I did not expect this. Oh, look at the bear hug he got from
Yo,
Jalen Milroe.
he's
That's
running the
great.
hallways now. He's amped. So anyway,
Hell yeah.
in case anybody isn't watching, it's Tyler Booker, the guard from Atlanta.
Oh,
From
I didn't
Alabama.
realize we didn't say the name.
Yeah. I just realized
Imagine
we
you're
didn't say
listening
it.
and you're a Cowboys fan who's tuned into
Who
this for
was
some
it?
reason. You're like, dude, who is it? I can't believe they took him. Unbelievable.
Somebody was like, I'm a Cowboys fan, but for some reason, I feel like tuning into a Jets-based
Hey,
draft
Well, no,
content.
we've every now and then, man. We had one guy, and he was really cool, and he was commenting back and forth, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm a Dolphins fan," and I was like
Yeah.
in season, we weren't playing the Dolphins that week, but and I think he commented, he said, "Oh, I listen to you guys all the time," and I was like, "All right, that's
yeah.
look, man.
I appreciate you.
We kind of we don't. Oh, I was about to say we don't trash anyone, and we're talking about the Dolphins. So here's a thought, right? I keep going back and forth on Mason Taylor because I'm not a big Jason Taylor fan. But then there is that part of me that's like, how sweet would it be to watch him score game-winning touchdowns against the Dolphins with his dad watching?
I got one for
I
you.
want Taylor and Gadsden. I want both of them.
I was just going to say, because remember, not only is Mason Taylor Jason Taylor's son, he's also Zach Thomas's nephew.
Yes, I heard that because Jason Taylor married Zach Thomas's sister or something.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. So you've got.
But also make him Joy Taylor's nephew.
I guess, I guess it's right.
Yeah, Joy Taylor, yeah. Known Jets hater on the airwaves.
Peanut butter
exactly.
skin. Joy Taylor with her peanut butter skin. No, so anybody that doesn't get that reference, just search that on Twitter and you'll pick that up right away. But that became one of the funniest memes of 2025 easily, by the way. But yeah, no, listen, that would be fun. Like you said, get both of those guys and make Oronde Gadsden, Jason Taylor, and Zach Thomas root for the Jets.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't think they even would. I think it would be a situation where they would root for him to do well, but they wouldn't root for the Jets to win. But I don't care. Because look, I've liked Gadsden for a couple years now.
Glenn, you think they wouldn't root for their kid to win football games? Come on,
they're going to root for him to play well. Even who was it? Saquon Barkley was like, when we play the Jets, my dad roots for the Jets. Like his dad is a Jets fan.
Damn.
Yeah.
I just searched Joy Taylor peanut butter skin. By the way, that dude
you didn't
out of his goddamn.
You didn't get the
mind.
reference, dude. That is one of the funniest things I've seen all year.
This guy is out of his goddamn mind.
Dude, it's the funniest thing in the world. Like when I first watched it, I laughed so hard that the people that were within anywhere of earshot of me were like, "What is going on? What are you laughing at?" I'm like, I can't even explain it to you. You have to watch it for yourself. Like there's no words I can say. But yeah, it was absolutely hilarious. If you haven't seen that, trust me, just go to Twitter or even go to Google and just type in Joy Taylor peanut butter skin and you will laugh uproariously.
Oh,
yeah, Glenn, I don't know if you saw that, but yeah.
I did not. Yeah. I'm trying to stay focused on not Joy Taylor's peanut butter. Let's see.
So who do we think goes here for Miami? Do they now? All right, here's a question. They really need offensive line help, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we see Josh Connerly here or Simmons?
Could be. I'm curious. I'm really curious where they stand internally on the Tyreek Hill thing because he's done this a couple times now, demanding a trade, and they got to have speed like that. He's like. They're like the new Raiders with like draft guys with sub 4.40s.
I hope they draft Shadur. It's not going to happen, but I think they would go Matthew Golden if they were to go wide receiver.
Guys, you ready for this?
Is it in?
Oh, no. Well, yeah, the pick is in, but Goodell's not up to the podium. Here's a question for you. Since you brought up Shadur, I don't think there's any way this happens, but let's say history repeats. And just like Geno Smith in 2013, Shadur Sanders falls to 42. Do the Jets think about it there? I think you have to, don't you?
Yeah.
I think they're gonna do everything they can for Fields.
Right, but at 42, don't you have to think about it?
You have to, in my opinion, you have to. It's just due to the nature of the position. And I said you could justify taking one of the next tier guys at 73, But if it's Shadur Sanders specifically at 42, you could justify it to me. Jackson Dart, I'm not personally a huge fan of. I would assume that would be the next guy in line. But no, I think you would certainly have to consider it just due to the fact that even if he was solid in his first year and Fields still outplayed him, you have a bargaining chip that's like Joe Milton on steroids. So to me, if the quarterback ever falls, you have to consider it wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
By the
man.
way- Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, listen, I think at 42, that's a spot where you really have to think about it, unless you just don't like him. If you just don't like him,
Yes.
then whatever.
Yeah, don't take him if you're not convicted. But like, it's a no-brainer
No,
to me. You have to
100%.
consider it.
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
No, I forget what I was going to say now. It had something. I was going to say something about. Let me see. Miami's the pick is in. I was going to say, what about this logic with people saying the Patriots traded Joe Milton? They didn't want any competition with him and Drake May if Milton played well. Like, if Milton played well, you get a second-round pick for him. Well, if you're so worried he's going to challenge your franchise quarterback, that means you think he's pretty damn good. And aren't you doing your franchise a disservice by not going out and getting a guy or keeping a guy to let him increase his trade value and get a second round pick for him? That makes no sense to me.
Who traded for Joe Milton again?
The Cowboys.
Yeah, see, I think the Cowboys, it's going to end up being the same stupid nonsense that they did with Trey Lance, where they traded for him. He's never going to see the light of day. I mean, look, anything's possible. I don't want to discount this as there's no way it happens. But I will tell you that to me, yeah, like he has physical tools, but he's so far away from being anything remotely resembling a full-time starting quarterback. There's no way that he was going to be any real competition for Drake May. Who are we kidding?
No, I know that, but this is what I'm saying. That the I forget who it was commenting on it, and they were saying that was their theory why the deal got made, saying that people in the building felt like Drake May would feel pressured or pushed or whatever. They basically said they didn't want Milton to play so well that there were like people calling for a competition, so they gave him away because they did give him. Where they get a fifth or whatever, a fourth for him?
Yeah, it was minimal. Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like, and I guess based on the way he played last year, it was limited opportunities, but he looked pretty good. And if he looked that good again in preseason, maybe you get a 2 for him. He's a quarterback, and the guy can throw the damn ball, the length of the damn field.
I'm already liking this Green Bay crowd. They're booing the Dolphins selection.
Oh, you got to like that.
Wow. Okay. All right.
All right.
That's interesting. Not what we expected.
I just have Goodell get to the podium now.
Not what we expected. That's all I'll say.
I hate it because I love the player.
Wow.
So the
All
two
right, yeah.
Michigan defensive tackles go in the top 15. How about that?
Yeah, well, and I did say, a few people said, I was like, I know that Graham gets all the love, but I was like, Kenneth Grant is a first round talent. Like, he's not being talked about as a first.
Yeah.
Everything I was seeing was like second round, and then you watch him and you're like, this guy's awesome. What do you mean second round?
There's apparently off the field stuff with him, but I'm not sure if that was medical
I
or
hadn't heard that.
character. Yeah, I don't know what
that.
it was, whether it was medical or character, or at least that was the rumor. But again, like, you hear these things and then you wonder if it's true because this stuff gets floated all the time. It's funny because my friend John Grella has worked in both sports and politics at the highest levels. He was a comms director for the Bucks. He's worked for very important politicians and political groups and such. And what he's told me about the literal dossiers that teams will have on these players, the same way that like politicians and their camps will have dossiers on their political opponents and stuff. And it's fascinating because he shared with me one time, I think it was one team, it wasn't a team, him and a couple of his buddies that were PR pros had worked together to basically compile these dossiers as like almost like a freelance hit squad or such. and he was showing me he was showing me an example of one of the ones they had on one of the players. I don't remember who it was, and it was unbelievable the dirt they had on this guy that nobody on earth would, like, no normal person would have known this stuff. So these guys have everything, all the information you could ever want. I mean, unless they're incompetent idiots, they have all the information you could ever want on these players. So if there's character concerns, they should know.
Yeah, and
Yeah, well,
Mookie just-
and we talked about that earlier, didn't we, Scott? Sorry to cut you off, Dylan, but teams we have to remind ourselves sometimes, and I say this every year, when guys are falling and we're like, why the hell is this guy still on the board? It's like, because teams know stuff that they don't announce.
yeah.
By the way,
and what's up?
No, I was just gonna say they just flashed Anthony Richardson's stats on the screen from last year. And for as bad as Zach Wilson was, he wasn't that bad, because those were some horrifically bad stats that I just saw.
Yeah, that's truly bad. 61.6 passer rating.
47% completion percentage. Good Lord.
But Mookie did mention at the presser that he had earlier this week that they were going to do their final, what they call security checks, which is checking the background of all the players and everything. So
I think this is where Warren goes.
You think correctly, because that is, and it's funny because all the pre-draft smoke was that the Colts really liked him, but there was a thought they might have to move up for him because a lot of people thought the Jets might take him, the Bears might take him. He falls right into the lap here. And I'll be honest with you. See, this is where I think Warren fits. I thought he was more of a 15, somewhere in that like 15 to 20 range. In this draft, maybe a little bit higher than that could be justified. I just didn't think he was worth the 7th pick, but at 14, if the Jets had traded down, I would have been fine with them taking Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a really good get for them. He's, again, as much as I wanted Ted, this is a guy I would have been fine with too. I just, like I said, the interesting thing with Spielman being in the front office was sort of the contradiction. I can't even remember if I finished saying it earlier, because Spielman said he thought Warren was a top 10 pick, but whenever Spielman would talk about players and red flags, one of his red flags was 1 year of production, which is what Warren had. But I guess that production just got so good, it got to the point where he was like, I'd make an exception here. And sometimes guys are that good that you kind of throw, like I always say, I don't want a guy who's an injury risk in the first round. But when I watched Malik Hooker, I was like, I would draft that dude. And sure enough, he spent most of his career injured. But when he's on the field, he was amazing. He's just one of those guys his body can't hold up to playing football. But when it does, he's one of the best at what he does.
You know what's weird? Those guys that have all the injury issues in college, but then they get to the pros and it's like they are magically, like, look at Landon Dickerson. That guy had so many injuries at college, and he's just been an absolute monster for the Philadelphia Eagles. How do you even begin to explain that?
And then you get guys like Elijah Vera Tucker and Cam Clark and Mekhi Becton, guys who never get hurt in college, and then they can't get on the field. They can't stay on the field in the pros.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. You never know with these things. There's so much luck. Listen, Kajana Carter, I know this is before your time, Dylan.
Man.
Everybody thought Kajana Carter was unbelievable. He was can't miss. He went number 1 in the draft, and he flamed out because he just couldn't stop getting hurt.
Well, his first NFL carry, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I want to say his first NFL. He was drafted first overall out of Penn State by the Bengals. His first NFL carry, he tore his ACL, I believe.
Let me tell you how good Kajana Carter was. Kajana Carter was so good. First of all, he averaged 8.5 yards a carry. Okay, and that's at Penn State. We're not talking about some Mickey Mouse school. 8.5 yards a carry, and he didn't win the Heisman Trophy because Rashaan Salam had 2,000 yards. But it was a joke because the only reason Kajana Carter didn't have more yards is because Penn State blew out everybody. So by like the third, fourth quarter, he wasn't even in the game anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that team was crazy because if you remember, Glenn, they had 3 players
Salam
picked in the
Penn
top
State
10.
Too. Were they teammates?
No, Rashaan Salam was Colorado with Cordell Stewart.
Oh, I was thinking he was Penn State.
No, you're thinking of that other running back, Curtis Enis, right?
Yeah, he was the one that hurt himself on his first carry.
Yeah, Curtis Enis. Yeah, man.
Curtis Enis, not Kajana Carter. Kajana Carter had one, but Curtis Enis was the guy who blew up his knee on his first career carry.
Yeah, but Carter got hurt all the time. But that Penn State team was wild, dude. They had 3 guys in the top 10. It was Kajana Carter went 1, Kerry Collins went 5, and then dare I say his name today, Kyle Brady went 9th overall.
Ugh.
Did you ever hear
I
that
still-
story with
I
Kyle?
still remember when they took Kyle Brady, because this is, when the draft wasn't on every single network or they weren't a million outlets. I was listening to that draft on WFAN, and when it, not so much the Brady pick, but the Jets took Brady. If you remember this, the Jets took Brady, and San Francisco immediately traded up to take J.J. Stokes because everyone thought the Jets were taking J.J.
Yeah.
Stokes, and when they didn't, San Fran was like, let's go get this guy. And they got J.J. Stokes, who was a bust. And I remember Mike Francesa was like, that Jets just passed on the next Jerry Rice for
Yeah.
a tight end, and
Well-
the 49ers trade up to get him.
Dude,
I'm like, wow. Like,
let me tell you a little story about that, right? So I used to go to the draft every year when it was you could go in person. It
Yeah.
was at the theater
Radio
at
City?
MSG. No, it was after Radio City. This was at the
Oh,
theater at
okay.
MSG. And I remember what we used to do is there was a McDonald's across the street. So one of us would go across the street, get everybody breakfast, and we'd be in line because they give you a wristband, and then you would stand in line. We were in line, we'd get there really early, like 4 or 5 in the morning, and we'd be standing in line, right? And I just remember we were online, and this is right after the Jets had hired Rich Kotite, and we saw a bunch of Eagles fans, right? And I was like, so, because this is before you really knew all the nooks and crannies. Like, we didn't have the internet. You couldn't really watch as much Eagles. You knew the Eagles had been a playoff team or whatever, but they had lost. I think they were 7-9. They started 7-2 the year before the Jets hired Kotite, and they finished 7-9. And then they fired him, and he went to the Jets. So I just remember saying, yeah, tell me about the new coach. Guy just starts laughing. I'm like, what? He goes, you'll see. So then we go inside, and then obviously, like, Warren Sapp is sliding, and nobody knew for sure. I think at the time the rumors were that he tested positive for first you heard
Pot.
marijuana, then later you heard cocaine was what he might have tested positive for, but he started to slide. And all the Jets fans were getting super excited. And now, you see the video, we want Sapp. Dude, the building was literally shaking. It was shaking. People were going crazy for Warren Sapp. He was there, by the way. He was sitting right there. Everybody was screaming for him. They come to the podium. And I think, like you said, Glenn, if they'd have said that they were going to pick J.J. Stokes, people would have understood it because Stokes was highly regarded at a UCLA.
Yeah.
They needed a wide
UCLA,
receiver.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, they had just traded Rob Moore, all that. So you look at that and you say, okay, great. They're going to get one of the two because they needed a pass rusher. Kevin Carter had gone earlier in the draft out of Florida. He comes to the podium, Tagliabue, and says Kyle Brady. The whole place went nuts booing. Poor Kyle Brady. I swear, I felt so terrible for the kid. He did nothing wrong. He was in attendance and people were yelling shit at him, whatever. And I just remember back then, so you had ESPN. There was no NFL network. All the ESPN guys were sitting right in front of you, but you couldn't hear them. So they gave everybody earphones so you could hear the audio of the broadcast. And I remember Rich Kotite doing an interview with Sal Palantonio afterwards at, I guess it was Hofstra at the time. And Sal Palantonio goes, Coach Kotite, a lot of people are wondering, you franchise tagged your tight end, Johnny Mitchell. You just traded your best receiver, Rob Moore, and you have no real pass rushers. Warren Sapp was there. J.J. Stokes was there. You have a franchise tag tight end. What's going on? And his answer was, well, listen, it's very important to have two good tight ends. And I just remember this Giants fan in front of me cracking up laughing. And then he turns around and leans over to me and goes, oh, buddy, I'm so sorry. What an idiot.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just know, man.
It was a foreshadowing of things to come, my friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, this has
Many-
got to be Jalen Walker, right? At 15, the Falcons.
They
This
took
gotta be
so
Jalen Walker.
long with this pick. I have no idea where they're going. But if they took all this time to eventually just come around to Jalen Walker anyway, yeah, I think that's probably to be expected. I'm probably only going to hang out. Probably
Dan Leberfeld just tweeted out, "Do the Falcons go quarterback here?"
Oh,
Ha!
God bless. No, come on.
How about this? What if the Falcons come up to the podium and say, with the 15th pick, we first want to apologize for taking Kyle Pitts in 2021. We'd like to undo that pick if we could. We would like to use the 15th pick to undo that one and go back in time and take Jamar Chase instead.
Yeah, good thing they
They're
can't
gonna, they're going to take Shador Sanders, and they're gonna go with the righty or the lefty, but depending on matchups.
Yo, Glenn, you say that, but you remember when Florida did that? They had Doug Johnson and Rex Grossman, and they did that. They had like a righty lefty. It was Spurrier. He did the weirdest stuff. Spurrier did the weirdest stuff.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys where like you'd be like, I dare you to do this, and he'd be like, all right, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah, but he was one of the he lasted 1 year in the NFL with Washington. He was like, oh man, like
Yeah, this
when
is
you
hard
coach here,
work.
everybody is good here.
Well, and also he's like, oh, it is Jalen Walker, by the way, no surprise. Yeah, it was like
Okay.
this is hard. By the way, I had heard that the Falcons loved him. It makes sense. He went to UGA
Yeah.
and all that. It's
Yeah,
just
rumored
funny because yeah, you look at all these funny stories and you're just like, oh my god, what is going on here? You know?
So I'm
Yeah,
reading
this
a
is,
tweet from Jordan Schultz that says that they took defensive tackle Jalen Walker.
Maybe he meant Trayvon Walker. They wanted to go back in time and take him.
Yeah, right.
So Arizona on the clock here.
We'll see if he changes it. Yeah, after Arizona announces their pick, I'm probably gonna hop out, grab something to eat, and then maybe hop back in with you guys, depending.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Let's see.
So here's the thing, guys. It's interesting, right? The top two tight ends are gone, but all the wide receivers are sitting there except for McMillan. So
Well,
listen,
I
you
was
want-
just gonna say, who do they have besides
Marvin
Marvin
Harrison? Who was
Michael
their
Wilson?
other receiver? Was he? No, he wasn't due to hit free agency, was he? He's
No,
only on
he's
year 3.
Still under contract. He's like 23,
Yeah.
24.
Who is?
Because
Michael
I heard
Wilson?
someone the other day talk about do they possibly go with Egbuka, but I'm not sure they need him badly enough.
No,
They have other needs.
This is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy.
edge. They kind of take some weird edges. Maybe they go big edge. I don't think they go Jahad Campbell. I'm just trying to think of like top guys on the board. Jahdae Barron, Will Johnson. Do they need a corner?
It's funny
Will
with
Johnson's good value.
Jihad Campbell,
Will
because
Johnson
supposedly
does not
there's
need to
medical.
slide this much. Sorry, Scott.
No, I was just gonna say supposedly there's medical stuff with Campbell, but who knows?
That's wild.
Jahad,
Field Yates
that's
says
what I
this is
heard.
the first time the Falcons have taken a first round player out of Georgia since 1966.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would
Wow.
think
That's
being
crazy.
in
Like,
Georgia, they would do that.
You're
more often.
Atlanta. They're a powerhouse program. How do you never take one? Like, take a local guy. That's nuts.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
That
to
is
me.
crazy.
And-
That doesn't
And you
make any
get free
sense.
local visits with those guys too, so you think you would understand and learn a lot about those prospects because you can have them in for basically like a free visit.
Yeah, and Walker's a polarizing guy too. I talked earlier about how I didn't see that, top 10 talent type thing.
Yeah.
And I went looking around, and Chris Sims said he thought he was the most overrated player in the whole class.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be
He's
interesting to
either
see
going
how
to
he's.
be awesome or I don't see any in between. He's either going to be awesome or he's going to be. I should do the Mitch Hedberg joke where he goes, he's either going to be great, awesome, or somewhere in between.
Oh my goodness.
That's an old Mitch Hedberg joke where he goes, our band was polarizing. People either loved us or they hated us, or they thought we were just okay.
Hashtag analysis.
Hey, listen, the thing you want is for you'd hope for a run on the offensive lineman now, honestly. You want Simmons, you want Ursary, you want Connerly to go, because that means it would push other guys down the board a little bit. There could be.
It looks like this is another thing McShay was wrong about. He said, let's see, 1, 2. He said as many as 7 edge guys could go in the top 17. We're at pick 17 and 2 have gone.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So
Wait, 2 edges, 3 edges.
Well, I'm looking at how they're listed on NFL.com.
Right,
you're talking about
because
Jalen Walker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa. The Cardinals
I-
just picked Kurt Warner. He's surprised. He's like, look, guys, I'm retired, but I'll think about it.
All right. Yeah, he's like, okay, I guess I got a little left in this arm.
Yeah, when I did a breakdown positionally of first rounders, I came away with 3 quarterbacks, 12 defensive line, and 7 offensive line. So like I feel like we're kind of on pace for that. We just had our 5th defensive lineman go, and we've had 4 offensive linemen go. So maybe more than 7 total go in the first round. But that was kind of my thinking, was it was just going to be close to 20 offense or defensive linemen.
Yeah, it's going to be it's like I said, it's going to be interesting to see if these tackles, because traditionally, like we all talk about quarterback, but tackles, a ton of those tend to go in the first round too. Just guys want those. You want those value positions, those big money positions on their cheap deals, and that's another reason I thought we'd see Ursary go in the first, which again he may. But we're halfway through the round now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this will put us halfway through once Arizona makes their pick.
We're at the halfway point, gentlemen. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, man, because there were the first 7 picks went almost exactly how you expected, and then chaos ensued.
Yeah, at Tedero McMillan, I started the curveballs, and it's kind of gotten weird since then. Like Loveland and Booker.
By the way, this is the first time in about a dozen years that a receiver that ran a sub 4.5 went in the top 15. Ooh, there's an interesting one.
Okay, I'm excited to hear who it is.
There's an interesting one. Very talented player. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, I'm going to guess defense then.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh,
there you go.
It was defense.
Walter Nolan, for anybody
like
who's
I said,
watching.
man, top 10 talent. Just whatever reason teams didn't want him there, on film, the guy's an absolute animal. He needs a bigger hat.
I was just gonna say his hat does not match his head.
Show him that I think it had to be adjustable.
It was a
I don't think it was a fitted
snapback
hat.
too.
Yeah.
Did you hear Lance Zierlein and Bucky Brooks say a couple of days ago? And I didn't even realize this. Walter Nolan was
the number one recruit in the country.
Yep. Yeah, that's crazy, right?
I heard that. I think I heard him say that during the Senior Bowl a couple months back. They were talking to a guy who I forget his name, and these guys are incredible. The work that they do, they project guys like early in their high school careers. Like they start following them in high school, and he said coming out of high school, we had him as the number 1 player in the country.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's great value right there. Someone started a thread on Jet Nation the other day saying, throw out a name. Who's a guy no one's talking about in the top 10 who you think could go there? And I said Walter Nolan, but he obviously goes 16 here. But I actually talked about it the other day. Schefter, there was a list, an ESPN list, and I forget who the analyst was, but Schefter tweeted out like the top 100 players ranked in the class, and they had Walter Nolan as the 5th best player in the class.
Wow. I mean, I thought top 15 was appropriate for him. He obviously goes 16. I was saying he could go, San Fran would have been a good fit. So I'm not surprised. Like the very first mock draft I did for the Jets, obviously, I said I watched the Super Bowl, and this is the mock draft, and it was a lot of trench players. So I'm not surprised at any of the trench players that go in this draft. Derek Harmon is still another guy who I think could be a first rounder. There's another guy who I'm blanking on.
What are we thinking for Cincy here? Will Johnson?
Shamar Stewart. Replace Trey Hendrickson or get that, pipeline player, big edge. Will Johnson, dude, like I said, I don't know. The slip for him, the fall for him doesn't make a ton of sense for me. I know we've only had technically 1 cornerback come off the board in Travis Hunter. But I thought we would have seen Will Johnson at least, flirted around with by now. But no, I think at the end of the round, we're going to see him and Jedi Barron come off.
Yeah.
But with that, I'm probably going to hop out for a little bit. I need to eat some food. I appreciate you, Scott, for coming on and hanging out with us. If I catch up with you guys later, I will. And if not, I'll see you probably a little bit tomorrow, Glenn, for my
Actually,
takes
you know
on
what? If you're gonna bail, so I don't leave Scott, give me like 2 seconds to go grab something, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Dylan, this is wild, man. We're halfway through.
Yeah,
And no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, halfway through, a little bit of what we expected, a little bit of what we didn't expect. This is where I do think the next 16 picks are going to be absolutely a roller coaster, because I heard, I think it was Schefter's Intel article saying that player 10 to player 32 is like splitting hairs for all of these teams. So at this point, player 16 on the board could be player 41 for another team, and vice versa. So you're really going to see a lot of names come into the fold that maybe weren't in the mock draft database simulator that everybody was projecting out to be. So that's why I always say the mock draft simulators aren't the gospel, and anything can happen live on draft day. But I think we're going to see that happen with the next 16 picks.
Want there to be a run on offensive linemen. That's what I want right now.
100%. Yep.
By the way, bold prediction. I still think the Steelers are taking Sanders, but we'll see.
With the uncertainty of Aaron Rodgers, I mean, you have to, again, consider it. If he is even on a not, I want to say draftable grade, obviously, but if he's in that first or second round grade for the Steelers organization, you have to consider it there. You didn't move any of your picks to come up, and they don't have a second round pick, so they didn't have to move up to get him. He fell right to them. You have to consider it. You don't have a quarterback other than Mason Rudolph on the roster who can start a game for you. Maybe we do see Aaron Rodgers news come out in the next couple days, because we know he likes to stay in the media cycle. So, perhaps they just sign him on day 3. But no, I certainly think this would be the spot. And then if it's not there, you have to consider, okay, is someone trading up for him, or is he going to be talked about all day tomorrow as who's going to take Shedeur Sanders at the top of round 2?
I would think whoever
him and Dart.
Yeah, I was going to say whoever likes either of them, you got to trade up. You got to get that 5th-year option. You got to do what Baltimore did with Lamar.
Yeah, 100% agree. Cleveland, New York, whoever they feel like it is going to be, I think you have to get that 5th-year option. If it's a non-quarterback position, you don't have to, in my opinion, but with the quarterback specifically, on the upside chance that he hits, you want to be able to lock in that 5th year. I agree.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yep. All right. That being said,
all right, Dylan.
They're showing Shedeur in the room. He's just rapping. So
they're going to show him all night long. But look, his dad's a seasoned vet. He's going to tell him all night. Look happy, look jovial.
Wow, what's crazy? They just were showing Shedeur, but then they just panned to the Bengals, and apparently the Bengals have drafted Dion. So that was what the phone call was about. They're good at quarterback with Joe Burrow, but they need help at corner, and they're looking at Dion. I mean, look, he could probably still backpedal.
Yeah, well, I don't know. He got that toe removed, so
I was gonna say he's got one less toe. That balance issue might come into play here.
Yeah.
Oh, where it is. There's a guy we mentioned a couple of picks ago as a possibility. So what did we? How many edge rushers did we say that McShay said would go in the top 17?
I mean, he didn't say. He said there would be. Okay, there you go. Yeah, he did say as many as 7 could go in the top 17.
So we had 5 if you count Jalen Walker. He wasn't that far off, I guess.
Yeah, 5 if you count Walker. Yeah, because only 5 or 4.
Man, Shamar Stewart is very much a boomer bust type of player here.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, huge risk. But I understand the intrigue.
Yeah, of course.
They compare him to Rashawn Gary. That would be so much fun if he turned into Rashawn Gary, who again wasn't productive in his first year, but now just signed a mega contract. I think last year with the Packers.
The player comps are so weird sometimes, though.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, he's a play wrecker. He doesn't get the production, but he's a play wrecker, and you're watching it here. When he just blew up the mesh point, and then he's all over DJ Lagway, going out on the screen against this guy. Like he's a play disruptor for sure. Not the sack guy, but he could be.
That's the thing. People just people do get a little bit too obsessed with the sacks. If you can blow up a ton of plays, there's a lot of value in that too. You know, it's Jesus, knock Roger Goodell
Yo,
over.
he is hype.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy because Rashawn Gary, I get the comparison. It was a similar thing where I remember when he got drafted, I'm like, there's no production there. But you know what? He came into the league and it took him a bit. But like you said, he just signed a massive deal and now he's one of the better players at his position. So if
100%.
Shamar Stewart is motivated and coachable, he could very well be a really good player. I will say, though, there's two other Shamars in this draft, right? There's
Yep.
Shamar Turner and Shamar James. So we could have three Shamars. And to be honest with you, it's not a very common name. Shamar is the name of Shamar Moore, the actor from Criminal Minds, but it's not a name you hear every day. So if three Shamars go in this draft, that might make history.
Yeah, be an NFL
that is
record.
interesting. And two of them played for the same team, so it was very difficult to distinguish when people were talking about Shamar Stewart and Shamar Turner at first until you turn on the tape and can really differentiate the two. But just hearing all the Shamars, it was like, what the hell?
Probably
And
the
there is
first.
there is another Jalen Walker in this draft as well.
It is
kidding me?
probably the first time in either one of their lives where, because they were on the same team, when somebody yelled out Shamar, they both turned around. Like, I would imagine that's not something that used to happen much.
Yeah,
No,
that's
no.
got to be so frustrating. You have such like a, I don't want to say unique, but pretty unique name comparatively. And yeah, you have two people looking when you say Shamar, like Scott, Glenn, Dylan. Those are more like,
Okay.
I guess I don't want to say generic names, but like we know people with those names. I don't know any Shamars, but yeah, having two on the defensive line, like you're in the meeting room, you're in your positional meeting room, and the coach is like, "Hey, Shamar," and you got four eyes looking at you. It's like.
I know this would be a very unpopular move, but if Aaron Glenn loves Jade Barron anywhere near as much as people think he does, if he slides toward the end of the first round, do the Jets pop up a little bit?
I just don't feel like they have the capital to be moving up for guys, but who knows?
No.
I mean,
I don't think they have the capital either, but again, like if you really feel that way about a player, I don't hate it. I would prefer Nick Emanwari if they're gonna go with the defensive back.
Yeah, Nick Manawari's still on the board. Wow, I forgot.
He's a true safety. You don't have to play dominant or like checkers or moving the guys around in the backfield. Like
Total
I don't
freak
wanna have,
athlete too.
Yeah, I don't want to have to do the conversation of, okay, is Jedi Barron going to be our slot and now Michael Carter's expendable, or is he our perimeter corner outside of Sauce? So now Brandon Stevens might be going back to free safety or strong safety. It's not a world I want to live in, and I don't want to chase a Brian Branch type player. But when you watch the tape, number 7 is feisty as hell, and he plays with fire. So.
Biased as I am because he's a Texas guy, I'm not saying I would do it. I'm just saying if Aaron Glenn loves him that much, you'd have to at that point sort of think about it.
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
All right.
Here comes
Now
the
I know I mentioned him for Miami, but could Seattle use a receiver here? I know they got rid of Metcalf. Obviously,
well, they signed Cooper Kupp.
Came into his own. Yeah. How much does he have left though?
I don't know.
So they got Kupp, JSN.
And the answer is it's not a receiver. I won't spoil it, but it's not a receiver.
Okay. I feel like the chalk is offensive line.
But I will say that, and yes, Dylan, you nailed it, but it might not be the guy you think.
Ooh, okay. I haven't looked at the board to see who's
Wow.
available. Ooh, okay. This was a mocked pick to them a few places, but I mean, I like it for them. They needed the help. I think PFF had center guard as their top 3 needs. So you're going to find a spot for Gray Zabel in Seattle, but no, I don't think this was necessarily the guy I would have thought. I thought they would have gone for more of a true tackle type. But damn, his film is good.
Is he going to play center or guard?
I hope they play him at guard. They have Oluwatimi from Michigan as their center. And I was a big fan of his coming out. I don't know how well he's played in the NFL, but I would probably try him out at guard first, in my opinion.
Bucks are on the clock, and somebody's on the phone. So I don't know who that is, but
let's make a trade.
Oh, okay. No, they were talking. It was Gray Zabel they were showing, so I got
Oh,
confused
okay.
for a second. I was like, wait a minute, he just got picked. Oh, right. Okay, so they're not showing whatever Tampa's doing. So what would okay? So here's the question: does Tampa in this spot draft an offensive coordinator to replace Liam Cohen? Is that what happens at number 19?
I actually wonder if Todd Bowles is gonna. Will Todd Bowles go with Worry? Will he take a versatile chess piece safety type who
Dude,
can play
yeah.
down in the box?
I love Nick Manowari, and I think he
Yeah.
would kill
Yeah.
it in Tampa for Todd Bowles. I think he would be
100%.
great there.
Or Barron, another again a versatile
Yeah.
guy there. I can see Barron or Worry going here.
My prediction, and then I'll hop out, is Donovan Ezeraku, the edge from Boston College. I think they're going to go
Okay.
defense. I think Todd Bowles is going to solidify the defense. I feel like they have a need at edge, and I'm blanking on who their current edges are, but I feel like they haven't gotten the most out of Joe Tryon Shoyinka. So I feel like it's going to be edge, but I would not hate either of those safety / defensive backs because we know how Todd Bowles is. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
Glenn, I'll catch you
All right,
tomorrow.
Dylan.
Scott, I'm not
Maybe-
sure what your plan is, but I appreciate you hopping in with us, and I'll catch you guys later.
Dylan,
All right, take care.
always a pleasure.
All right, later, guys.
Let's
So-
see.
Glenn, when we get done with this live stream, we're gonna do the recap on Play Like a Jet, and I think Nick Farry is gonna join us, so that'll be fun.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm just
It's,
honestly at this point, I want to run on offensive linemen, just push all the players that the Jets could get into.
Yeah,
Can you imagine,
exactly.
like, dude, if Nick Manowari, I don't think this is gonna happen, but if Nick Manowari is there 42, I feel like how do you not take him? Because
Yeah.
Aaron Glenn loves guys like those safety. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a. Let's see. It's got to be a foregone conclusion that they're taking a safety at some point, and I would imagine
Yeah.
in the top 3 rounds. But yeah, they would have to. They don't have a 3, right? No, they have. They lost the 3 that they got in the trade that they sent to that they got from the Lions and then sent to the Raiders, but they have their 3.
Yes, they do. It would be nice if they had that 3 back instead of
10
10 games of Devontae Adams. But yeah,
I hate this team so much.
Oh,
Oh,
listen,
man.
I get it. They were like, listen, if we're gonna go off the cliff, we're gonna go off the cliff. Like,
The thing is,
basically,
though, I could defend that. I could get on board with that, and I defended it at the time. But now that we've heard that internally they knew Rodgers was far more injured than was being let on publicly, they had to know in the building, like, look, this guy's barely keeping it together. He's not going to get better. Like, they shouldn't have done it. They should have been like,
when
we traded for a 40-year-old quarterback. He's breaking down. We're already 2-4 to whatever the hell their record was. Let's just move on. To give up a pick for a guy when you knew the 40-year-old quarterback was hurt. That's when I was like, that you can't. To me, you can't justify that. That was dumb.
Glenn, did you ever watch The Wire?
God, yeah, a couple times.
Okay.
I was actually talking about The Wire a couple days ago at Easter.
So the famous Slim Charles speech where he says, "Well, if it's a lie, then we fight on the lie." That's what they did. They fought on the lie. They had lied to themselves about what they were going to be as a team, and it wasn't working out. So they decided, screw it, we're going to double down on this.
Yep.
I'm looking at the screen right now. All right, so we know that Mike Green has some real character issues.
Right.
There's another
Does
guy
he?
though. If he's there at 42,
Oh yeah, yeah. You got to consider that.
that's
But
crazy.
Isn't it weird how teams like they call the player to tell them they're picking them, and then they turn around to watch the TV to watch Goodell announce it? Like, that's kind of weird, isn't it?
What a tweet, by the way, by Deion Sanders Jr. The rejected will be respected. Okay. I like green
Cool.
eggs and ham, Sam I am, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get that these guys are they're hurting because they, for a long time they thought he was a lock top 3 pick.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I went back and forth. There were days where I liked the idea of Shedeur to the Jets, and there were days I was like, you know what? Like, how many different analysts that I heard say we think he's not throwing at Indy because no matter who he goes out there before and after, he's going to have the weakest arm in the group. There's the holding onto the ball as long as he does, which, you could. I think his receiver, I really, really like his receiver group at Colorado. I'm like, with all those guys, like you took 50-some sacks. Now, look, maybe the coordinator was no good. I can't say why guys weren't getting open if they weren't. But, he has the talent to be an NFL quarterback, but clearly teams are not, they just don't feel like he's a first-round talent. Oh, wow. That Tampa Bay pick.
Wow, how about that?
I almost said that, but then didn't they extend what's his name?
Yeah, that is weird because they kind of are both slot guys, no?
Yeah, that's why. Like, I looked at him and I thought, oh, maybe Ibuka here, and I was like, oh no, because they gave him the extension because he had that terrible injury, and I was like, oh, is he going to come back from that? Well, clearly they think he is because they gave him big money. But that's good player, but surprising pick because of Godwin being there.
I guess they just felt like too good not to take him. I don't know. That is wild.
So Aaron Glenn was asked at the post-pick press conference about the comments Aaron Rodgers made about their meeting, and Aaron Glenn answered, Membu is a really good player, and I'm excited he's a Jet.
Yup, we're on to Cincinnati.
Best way to handle it.
We're on to Cincinnati. It's like John Cena when he was doing that post-WrestleMania press conference, and some reporter asked him, how come The Rock didn't show up, whatever, and Cena goes, that strikes me as a clickbait question, and I'm expecting better from you, so next question. And that was his answer to every question. And it's the old, Bill Belichick, we're on to Cincinnati. Good for Aaron Glenn. That's the exact right answer.
Yep.
Great. So Aaron Glenn, Coach Glenn, what are your thoughts on, Aaron Rodgers basically calling you out in public? Well, listen, I think Armand Membu is going to be a great bookend tackle across from Olu Fashanu. Our team is all set up for And
you think about now, this Jets offensive line now has 4/5 of that line are all guys on their first contract.
Yeah.
And John Simpson, who played really, really well this past season. And the thing I always say, like, fly on the wall. I always want to know how the team truly feels about the younger guys, the depth pieces on the roster, because there are some, like, I thought Cole Laval, I thought he looked fantastic in the preseason. I would love to know if they view him as a viable backup. There are some guys that haven't played a lot, but you would imagine between preseason film, with whatever film they get from when they practice, what conclusions they draw, what opinions they have of these guys. Xavier Newman, another one. They exercised his option or added him for another year. So they clearly think something of him. But I would love to know with these interior, because it all plays into, your thought process as the draft plays out. Like, do they take a guard to back up and develop? Well, maybe they don't, because maybe they like what they've seen from Colaval and they think he can be that guy. Always just wish we had some idea what they thought of these guys.
Yeah, man, listen, that's the beauty of it, though. We don't, we wish we had an idea of what they thought of these guys, but at the same time, we want them to keep it close to the vest. So,
oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting now. By the way, Denver has come out and said they are not taking Shedeur Sanders here. So, just breaking news there. They will not be taking Shedeur Sanders.
Shocking.
Yeah. No,
I don't think they'll.
No, I was just gonna say I think obviously I'm joking around, but Boulder, Colorado, Denver. If Bo Nix wasn't there, it would have been an interesting one.
Chris Grit. Now this is what I would say if I was a GM, because no one can ever verify it. But Chris Greer said that after picking Kenneth Grant, he immediately got multiple texts from other GMs saying Grant was their guy, and it's a feasible thing. Like I said, he was definitely a top 10 or first round talent in my opinion.
Yeah, but that also could be like hey, you can't meet my girlfriend because she lives in Alaska. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. It can't be proven. And if they're looking at social media, I don't know if you've seen it, Scott. I think I sent it to you actually. someone tweeted out some Dolphin fan reactions, and did not go well after that pick. So I can see him wanting to calm the fan base by saying, "Hey, a bunch of teams wanted this guy, and we got him."
Do you remember the Daniel Jones thing when everybody was giving Gettleman crap for taking Daniel Jones? And he said, like, oh, well, my bagel guy liked the pick. So I'm just like, oh, man, that was amazing. He's like, I went for bagels the next morning, and the bagel guy was like, great pick, Dave. And you're just like, oh, boy, this is.
I do remember that now.
But I mean, listen, ultimately, we've talked about this. Mark Ross says this all the time. All the time. You can't worry about what the fans or the other people in the league, you can't worry about any of that. You've got to just focus on who you like and what you think is the best move. Because the second you start caving to pressure like that is the second you panic and start making the wrong moves. The Eagles is the great example. He was in that front office when they went against the entire city of Philadelphia and picked Donovan McNabb over Ricky Williams. And as much as I love Ricky Williams, it was the right call. Donovan McNabb completely changed the trajectory of that franchise. They became a perennial winner. Now, they didn't win a Super Bowl, but they won a lot of divisions. They won a bunch of playoff games. They went to a Super Bowl. And I don't think that happens with Ricky Williams as much as I love Ricky. So it is what it is. The interesting pick here, though, because the Denver pick is in. We don't know what it is yet. The Steelers. I've said all along, I still believe they'll pick them. Pick Shedeur Sanders, push comes to shove. But will they? That's the question.
Let's see who's how much time, or the pick is in, you said?
Yeah, the Denver pick is in. We don't know what it is yet, or at least we don't know unless you're on Twitter, which we're not. So
no.
There's Sean Payton and George Payton, the Paytons. But they spell it differently, so they can't be related. Because Sean Payton spells it P-A-Y and George Payton just spells it P-A.
Well, there you go.
They seem happy with the pick, whoever it ends up being. What are we thinking here? What are they going to do? A Marion Hampton?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure I've seen him mocked a couple of times as well.
Ian Rappaport is claiming that the Steelers have been very divided on whether they would pick Sanders if he was on the board, that they've been going back and forth as to whether or not he's worth a first, because remember, they don't have a second rounder because they traded it for DK Metcalf.
Yeah, and if you remember, that was what, not that he's got a great track record for tonight's picks, but McShay said that the Steelers like Shedeur, but they do not like him enough to take him at 21. But of course, you can spend all day arguing back and forth, and maybe the people who think he is worth it, maybe they went out and convince, the powers that be that he's worth the gamble there.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Denver, Omarion Hampton, that would make a lot of sense here.
There's a variety of different ways they could go with this, but Omarion Hampton certainly would make a lot of sense. What about an offensive? Do they need offensive line help? I'm still trying to push an offensive lineman run into existence.
Yes, exactly. That's what every offensive lineman that goes is a good thing, because the Jets, obviously their 5 is set. So
yeah, they're not picking an offensive. I mean, they might pick one later in the draft for depth or future, but they're not doing it
round 2 and 3. No.
Yeah, I would be very surprised. Okay, here comes the Denver pick. Crowd is very very into it.
At Green Bay, man, But obviously, it's
wow.
not just Green
all right.
Bay
well,
fans.
So much for the Aaron Glenn fantasy, I guess.
Oh, did they take Emenwari?
No, Jahdae Barron.
Or Jahdae Barron?
Yeah, Jahdae Barron.
Okay.
Hook. Hey, all I could say is two Longhorns in the top 20. Hook them, baby. Although still Matthew Golden on the board.
Yeah, that's right. Where do you think Quinn Ewers goes?
Matthew Golden slides to the end of the first round. We said this before about Jahdae Barron, and we said it about Colston Loveland. Matthew Golden slips to the end of the first round. Do you jump up? Because remember, the value of the end of the first round is you get that 5th year.
Yeah, I think again, it's not for Golden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's as vital with receivers. It's because quarterbacks, they take so long. You want that extra year, and they're so important. You want that extra year.
Oh no, but you still want that extra cheap year.
Yeah, no, I mean in terms of it, like with quarterbacks, you almost have to. with other positions, it makes sense to do it. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you jump up for that. Normally I expect teams to do it for a QB, but
It actually makes a
Uh,
lot of sense for a running back too, because you're probably going to get rid of the guy after the 5th year.
yeah, depends on how far you're coming up and what you have to give up to move up that little bit or
They're
that
showing that Broncos defense, man. There's some players on that defense. I
oh that
forgot they
defense is
signed.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I
The
forgot
fact
they
they
signed
went
Dre Greenlaw.
yeah, the fact they went defense is a little surprising because it's so good. I thought they would have gone offense and gotten another playmaker, but Nick
Well,
Bonito, man, I really liked him coming out of college. I'm glad he's worked out.
Here it is, though, dude. What do they do? Is it as Joe Beningo said? Is it Shadir Sanders, bro?
It's
Did you hear that clip?
bro.
That was hysterical.
Oh, he's such a clown.
He was like, "Bro, if he's on the board, the Jets got to think about Shadir Sanders, bro." So of course, it became a meme where people were sending pictures of deer and all that. Oh, the Steelers are on the phone. They're on the phone. They're talking. They're talking to
Are they?
somebody. I don't know what that means, but somebody's on the phone. Someone in the war room is on the phone. And he's
Is the
smiling.
Are the Jets
Oh.
the only war room we didn't see?
Okay, so Dion's smiling. That could just be him having a good time, or he might
Yeah,
know something.
he's been smiling every time they've shown him. So,
Yeah, that's
like I
true.
said, I think he's probably coached up Shador to be like, hey, no matter what, keep your chin up, happy, nothing but smiles all night.
Yeah.
He could be
Yeah.
standing there going, these goddamn sons of,
Yeah,
like
exactly. He's, under his breath, he's like,
through gritted teeth.
Man, I will say though, man, you would think that Dion would love to have Shador go to Mike Tomlin, right? Because everybody respects Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's interesting. There's a lot of players that are still on the board that would be really, really nice picks for the Jets. Derek Harmon is still on the board.
Yeah.
Both the safeties,
He'll go,
Amenawari
though.
and Malachi Starks are there. Mason Taylor, Matthew Golden is there. Jahad Campbell, depending on what's going on with the medical.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what, man, if there's no medical issue with Campbell, boy, you got to think about him in the second round if he's there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a really good player, man. In a lot of ways, he's similar to Jalen Walker, where you could use him a lot like people were talking about,
Yeah, exactly. He was a guy I think I would prefer him over Walker from what I saw on film. He was the more impactful guy. All right, the pick is in, so they didn't move. Let's see.
As a player, they took one ride on that roller coaster in this portion of the draft. I don't know that they're going to do that again. What a monster moment this is for the 2020.
Oh, wow. Okay. It is not Shador Sanders, so Sanders continues to fall. It's one of the guys I mentioned.
Yeah, so you have to imagine he's a day 2 guy now. Like I said, unless someone trades up to 31, 32 to grab him. Oh, there you go. That makes sense. He's a Steeler type player.
What about the Rams? Do we think the Rams are a possibility?
I forgot you weren't on with us yet. I said that exact thing to Dylan earlier when we were talking about before you came on. I said, yeah, that's the exact scenario pitch. And in fact, I think someone posted a poll the other day on the forums on Jet Nation, and that was what I predicted. Because I think he goes in the first. But hearing that Steelers didn't like him enough to take him there, I went ahead and said, you know what, the Rams to work him behind Stafford, that makes sense. I could see that being a fit. And so having just said he's probably a day 2 guy, the Rams are probably his last hope, I think, unless, as I said, I mean, look at the Eagles. They're just sitting pretty, right? Super Bowl champs. They have 1 million draft picks. They have no needs. They could sit this one out and be fine. So if you're Howie Roseman, you're dying to get to your pick at 32 and wait for your phone to start ringing for teams that want to jump up and grab that player that they want the 5th-year option on. And maybe someone does that with him. All right, so Derek Harmon to the Steelers at 21. Disruptive DT out of Oregon. I love his teammate, Jamari Caldwell. That's a guy I hope the Jets grab later on. we'll see
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, they certainly could. It's funny because, man, now they don't really have to worry about tackles. So there's so many possibilities. Like, I didn't really love the top end wide receivers in this draft, but I like the second wave. I think there's some
Right.
decent guys in that second, third round range. And I didn't look, I like the tight ends at the top.
You're breaking up, Scott. I don't know if you're still talking or if you hit mute, but I got a portion of that sentence and then you went quiet. Here's I'm gonna mute for just 1 second and hear what Rappaport had to say about why
All eyes are now on the
Pittsburgh
Steelers.
didn't want Shador.
We know he had a good visit. We know he is now available. We do not know if the Steelers are going to pick him. My understanding is, as of yesterday, they were going back and forth. Is the value worth it? Split in the room. We will see what decision they make. It's all on.
All right, wasn't really a reason why Pittsburgh didn't take him, but just talked about what happens with a lot of picks. They were split in the room, and Steelers execs went back and forth on whether or not Shador should be the pick, and they obviously settled on no, he should not. And again, as I said at the top with Dylan and Scott and I just mentioned, maybe you could see him going to the Rams, but that's it really. There's really not another team after the Rams that's going to be looking to move on from their quarterback anytime soon. You've got Baltimore, you've got Detroit, you've got Washington, you've got Buffalo, you've got KC, and you've got Philly. None of those teams are looking to move on from their quarterback in the next year or two. So really, the Rams, and even before that, Green Bay, Minnesota, they just took JJ, Houston with Stroud. That Shador's last shot to go in the first round among teams on the board. LA is the last one, but of course, as we've said, you could have a team trade up from the top of round 2 to move into round 1 and grab him. Or again, same for Jackson Dart. If you're depending on which one of those guys you like, if you're a team that wants to add a quarterback and you want to get that 5th-year option, you move up and get him. And if we talked about this last year, and I heard it as a topic the other day on a draft pod, that it's rare that you see quarterbacks, or more than, you don't see many quarterbacks going round 2 anymore. Because teams are now at the point where they feel like, if you're good enough for us to take you early, we want the 5th-year option. So we're going to move up and take you in the first. If you're not worth moving up to take in the first, you're not worth a second. So we'll wait till round 3. So that seems to be the norm or the standard nowadays, is that you go in round 1 or you go in round 3. You don't see more than 1 or 2 quarterbacks go in round 2 nowadays, and often you see none. So let's see, Jade Barron, yeah, that just popped up. Just peeking over at Twitter real quick while trying not to catch what the next pick is. LA Chargers on the clock.
Did you see that thing that they just flashed about the Chargers? I didn't realize this. The Chargers haven't won the division since 2009. Wow.
Yeah. That's Were you getting me that whole time, Scott? Because I didn't hear anything from you for a few minutes.
Yeah, it sounded like you were on a roll. I was doing the whole. You remember in Animal House when John Belushi was going on a rant and he's like, "Let him go, he's rolling." I was just letting you roll.
That was the Germans bomb Pearl Harbor rant.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Let him go, he's rolling, and it's not going to stop us now. So you got what do we have next here? So you got the Chargers.
You got the Chargers.
Are there any teams that actually, man, Jackson Dart might make some sense for the Rams too?
Yeah, well, I just went through the teams. There's really, other than the Rams, there's not a team left in the first round that would take a quarterback, even as a backup to develop. The Rams might, but everyone else has a young quarterback. You've got the Chargers, you've got the Packers, you've got the Vikings, the Texans, the Rams, who would make sense, and then the Ravens, Lions, Commanders, Bills, Chiefs, and Eagles. I mean, I know Goff's getting up there in years, but I don't see them using a first-round pick on his replacement.
I'd be surprised. He's not that old. He's only like 28
I was going to say, he's
29.
not that old. He's been around a while, but he's Yeah, he's got plenty of years left.
Yeah,
So
because he came into the league at like 20 or 21 years old. He was young.
yeah, if nobody trades up, then I have a hard time seeing how he goes in the first. Either Dart or Sanders go in the first round.
Wow.
Somebody would have to move up for that to happen.
Yeah,
And now here we go with the green room shots. Will Johnson sitting quietly in that green room.
By the way, condolences to Charlie Campbell over at WalterFootball.com. I believe he had nailed the Panthers' first round pick like 8 years in a row, and that streak came
Oh,
to an
really?
end tonight. Yeah.
Oh,
He had them taking Jalen Walker. That streak came to an end tonight.
all good things must come to an end.
Listen, it's funny because speaking of streaks, we were joking about this the other day. Somebody had a hitting streak. I forget who it was, and we looked, and the closest anyone's ever come to DiMaggio was Paul Molitor, and Molitor
remember
had
that.
39 games. But dude, think about that. He was still 17 games away, and he's the closest anyone. No one's ever breaking that record. It's not happening.
No. Especially nowadays, where striking out is totally acceptable. I
Well,
don't watch baseball anymore because, like,
Yeah.
dudes strike out 300 times and they're like, "Oh, that's cool. He was trying to hit a home run." Like, what?
There's certain streaks. Like, didn't Eli Manning like never miss a game in 15 years or some? Or Brett Favre too, right? He didn't miss a start. Like, you're never gonna. No one's ever gonna do that. Like, you're never gonna see a quarterback that doesn't miss a game for like however many years it was that Brett Favre played.
Didn't Joe Thomas never miss a snap?
Yeah, that was crazy, man.
And DeBrick would have if not for Mangini.
Right, but even that, like the Brick played for 10 years, and that's incredibly impressive. But Favre did it for what, like 20 years or something?
Really? I don't
Or
know.
maybe-
I mean,
maybe I'm
I know he had
exaggerating,
an
but-
Iron Man streak. I don't know how many years it was.
Yeah, so I think he didn't come out until that last year in Minnesota, but I think from the time he became the starter in Green Bay, which would have been what, like 93, 94, until like whatever that year was, like 2010, 2011, something like that. So yeah, you're looking at like 16 years for a quarterback. That's wild.
This feels unnecessary. Just
Yeah,
saw
what
a
a-
tweet pop up. Jason Whitlock tweets out, "The money Dion and Shador spent on Mel Kiper was wasted."
Oh boy.
I guess. I think Kiper had Shador as his QB1.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
Whitlock is suggesting it was a pay for play deal.
Well, to be fair, he obviously must have had our friend Emery Hunt in his pocket as well, because Emery had Shador as the number one
Yeah.
quarterback on his
Yeah, I
board
mean, look,
too.
there are people are going to disagree on evaluations, and just because you had Shador as your QB1
Glenn,
doesn't mean you didn't have him as your QB1.
Glenn, I don't know how you could possibly believe that. How do you think that it is possible in any way that people could have good faith disagreements on what they think about a football player? I don't see how you could think that.
It is a pretty absurd thought, isn't it? Pretty wild concept.
No, listen,
yeah.
this is all settled in stone, and if you don't agree with person X, you're a moron. So that's how it goes. That's Twitter.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I do see people do that sometimes where they can't even entertain the notion that, not even to change your mind, but to say, okay, I get where you're coming from. We can agreeing to disagree. Some people do struggle with that.
Wow. Holy cow. I can't believe it. The Chargers picked Shiloh Sanders. No, I'm just kidding.
He's probably a UDFA.
Yeah, no, I was joking. But they did pick a guy that we mentioned earlier, potentially to a division rival.
Yeah, I saw it. Okay, yeah, I saw it pop up a second ago by accident.
But doesn't that make
player. I love him.
sense?
I love Omarion Hampton, and that offense just got a whole lot better.
Well, think about it. They took Joe Alt last year, right? And then they took McConkey.
McConkey. Yep.
So
I guess Hampton. This is seriously. You got some dudes who can make people miss now.
If
and Hampton will run over you too. Hampton's power. He's elusive. He's durable. He can catch the ball. He was my RB1 until Genty came on the scene, and even then I was resistant to it. I didn't want to. Drop the idea of him as RB1, but the more I watched Genty, I was like, all right, I get it. He's RB1. But to me, Hampton was the closest thing to him. He was RB2 by a wide margin. Or by a decent margin.
Colston Loveland could have been interesting if he'd have made it to 22, because that would have been a nice piece for that offense. But yeah, I think this is a good spot for Hampton. And I think we just touched on this. I like the idea of the 5th-year option on the running back because then as soon as his rookie deal is done with, you move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get 5 years from the guy. I forget who it might have been Jamal. You remember Jamal Westerman, who used to play for the Jets? I think he
Yeah.
might have
Yeah.
been the
The
one. Yeah,
linebacker edge guy.
yeah, and he was a really good player in the CFL too after his NFL
Yeah.
career was over. And he's a coach on the Rutgers staff now. I haven't talked to him in a while because he just got so busy coaching. But I
Right.
remember us talking about it where he said like he had 2 theories. He said the first theory is he would take a running quarterback every year and he would beat them into the ground for 5 years and then draft another one. And he said the same thing about running backs. He said he would draft a running back in like the top 2 rounds every 5 years and just keep running them into the ground. And as soon as the rookie deal was over, go get another rookie. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, all right. I could see the logic in that, I suppose. Like you get Brees Hall for 4 or 5 years and then you run him into the ground and then he's gone. And then you go and you get the next guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get,
Exactly. That's
you get his best years, you know? Oh, Green Bay's on the clock. They're going to explode.
let's see. They got to go defense here, right?
So oh wow, this is funny. The longest wide receiver first round streak. No wonder why Aaron Rodgers wanted to kill
Well, yeah,
somebody.
that was the first time I'd heard that. I had no idea that was the case. And then when the Jets traded for Rodgers, you heard that being talked about. And it was like, damn, like they went
But
that long without taking a wideout.
but to be fair, the last time before Garrett Wilson, the Jets hadn't picked a wide receiver in the first round, I think, since Santana Moss, right?
Probably, yeah.
So that had been an 18-year gap because I think Moss was the 04. Dude, I was at that draft, by the way. So like I told you, we used to go every year. I'll never forget, or was it 02? Whatever year he was drafted. I think it might have been 02. I just remember there was a guy that kept saying, because there were a couple of receivers that were picked ahead of him. He's like, you can't pick Santana Moss. He's too small. Guys that small never become impactful receivers in the NFL.
Mm.
You got to pick Rod Gardner or David Terrell. And of course, which of the two was the one? Which of the 3 was the one that
David
turned out to be
Terrell,
a
was he
really?
Michigan?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and Corin Robinson, who actually was a decent receiver,
I
but
was gonna say Bears. He was solid, wasn't he, for a little bit?
no, Robinson was the Seahawks, I believe. I think it was David Terrell went to the Bears.
Okay.
But either
Robinson was
way,
Robinson Penn State.
but either way, that
No, I'm thinking of
no,
somebody
you're thinking
else.
of Allen. You're thinking of Allen Robinson.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but either way, like so, the point is of the 4, Santana Moss was by far the best receiver. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
I mean, he made the Pro Bowl a bunch of times in Washington, I think.
Him and Lavernius Coles had some really good. I mean, Coles wasn't there for as long, but they both, of course, they both played their best football with another team.
That was one of my more underrated ranked Jets wide receiver cores. You remember they called it 6 feet under? It was Coles, Corbett, and Moss. I think Moss was 5'9", Corbett was 5'10", and Coles was 5'11".
Yeah, that was a good group, man. That was a solid group.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. I missed that, dude. Those 3 guys were so. I always tell my buddy Robbie Sabo at Jet X Factor because he does that show with Corbett, and Corbett does another podcast I think with Coles. And I always say, I was like, man, that combo, those 2 guys and Moss together, it didn't last long because if I recall correctly, I think it was like the next year, Coles signed that free agent contract, and then the Jets traded Moss to get Coles back.
And Jordan Schultz saying here the Eagles are talking to the Packers about moving up.
Okay.
I mean, listen, the Eagles have a billion picks.
I don't know who it would be for,
want.
but I do know this: whoever it's for is going to end up being an All-Pro.
Just look and see who are the best Georgia players left on the board.
Well, okay. So here's a question: What did they lose this offseason? Oh, what about Will Johnson? Didn't Darius Slay's getting traded, right? Maybe Will Johnson.
That would make sense. Let's see.
Or no, there's no tight end that would make sense here because we've heard about Goddard, so I can't imagine they're trading up for Mason Taylor. Who else did they recently lose? I'm thinking Will Johnson, right? No?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Or maybe Nick Manawari? No, because they took Cooper DeJean. Yeah, I don't know. This is interesting. Mark
Oh
Murphy.
yeah, I forgot about the Gene. They took him. I forgot about
Yeah,
that
they
guy.
did take Cooper DeJean. Really turned out to be a hell of a player. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know, man. What do? Oh, they could go pass rusher, maybe Mike Green to replace Brandon Graham.
Could be.
There's a lot of ways they could go, but it doesn't look like the pick got traded. It says the pick is in, so
Okay, I guess he was wrong, or it didn't happen.
they're gonna pick
That
Matthew
was, yeah,
Golden
that
and
was-
end the first round wide receiver streak.
That was 2 minutes ago. That's what I was wondering.
The Packers are weird at wide receiver. They have a bunch of guys that are like solid, but nobody's like anything special.
Yeah, like as we were saying, they haven't taken a receiver in a million years, and having mentioned Golden a couple times, he would make
Well,
sense here.
But like they have like three, like Dontavian Wicks is pretty decent.
Yeah, but they
Romeo
don't have
Doubs.
they don't have a dude. They don't have.
That's what I'm saying. They've got
Yeah.
4 guys that are all pretty solid. Jaden Reed, what's his face, Christian Watson. These are all
At some
solid
point,
guys.
at some point, they have to say, "We always have a quarterback. Let's go get him a weapon."
Yeah, and I mean they did draft that tight end a couple years ago, so I doubt it's a tight end.
Musgrave.
Yeah, with the Jets pick, right?
I think was that last year.
No, it wasn't 2023. I think it was with the Jets pick.
All right.
They're
What's
about
the
to
time?
erupt. I can't believe how big this got, dude. I used to sit at the theater at MSG
Oh my God,
with a
it's
few thousand
crazy.
people. Now it's like the entire city. I know a guy that lives around there, and he's like, "Oh, I'm staying in my house the whole time."
There's like more people coming in town for the draft. Like they said, Green Bay like population's like I don't know 120,000, and there's over 200,000 people coming in for their draft.
Yeah,
I don't know where all these people are sleeping, but
on the street. I don't know.
yeah,
I hope not.
I'm sure Green Bay is safe enough that you could if you wanted to.
Airbnb. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna say it's a receiver, and Golden's the best guy out there right now. Let me put on some volume here, so I'm gonna mute myself.
All right.
Bringing the draft here in Green Bay for the best draft in the history of the NFL.
He's like, and we fleeced the Jets for Aaron Rodgers.
On behalf of the Packers, Packer fans here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and everywhere, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the NFL draft
Wow.
at Lambeau Field.
Shadur Sanders. That's a ballsy pick by them. Nah. Just kidding.
We're privileged to host this wonderful event in our community.
All right, Mark Murphy. Enough of your speech. Make the stupid pick already, buddy.
Seriously, man, these people think that everybody wants to listen to them.
Oh my God, he's still talking. Oh, I hate this.
They're
Here
gonna
we
have
go.
to push back week 1.
Uh,
We also want to celebrate the special connection we have with our
And we have the best seats in the stadium in the NFL, and the nicest grass.
there it is. There it is, Glenn. Matthew Golden.
All right.
They finally decided to take a swing at wide receiver. The 23-year drought comes to an end.
All right, took them long enough, but yeah, like I said, man, you invested all this money in your quarterback, and you just saw what Aaron Rodgers, when you had him, you only won 1 Super Bowl. With a guy like that, you should have won a couple. Like, get some weapons, so that this does make sense. Even
By
though
the way,
they have some nice young receivers. Reed's a good player, but they don't have a dude like this. But now they do.
Okay, so now the 2 wide receivers we thought would go in the first went in the first. And now the two tight ends we thought would go in the first went in the first.
Well, the 3 receivers, Egbuka. I thought Egbuka.
Oh,
I think-
right. I'm sorry. Yeah, the 3 receivers, Igbuka too.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. Again, reportedly some red flags. And I heard this on a few different podcasts. But Luther Burden, to me, man, he's a first round talent, but they say there's some flags
Yeah.
there.
A lot of character issues, supposedly.
Yeah, some like disinterest or whatever. Not really a team guy, reportedly, which again you would imagine would rule him out for Aaron Glenn. But if the Jets don't see that and he's there at 42, that's tremendous value. This is a good fit. This is again, it gives Green Bay a legitimate deep threat. He ran what, a sub 4.3? Was he? No, he said he was going to run a 4.29. He ended up running a 4.3. That's guys need to stop predicting what they're going to run because they make that's the only way you make 4.36 or whatever 4.37. The only way that sounds slow is when you tell everyone it's going to be a 4.29. You know what I mean? Like just say I'm going to go out there and see what I do. And we'll see what happens. And then you run a 4.36 and everyone's, oh my God, that's amazing. What an incredible time. But instead you say, I'm going to do a 4.29. You run a 4.36 and everyone goes, oh, well, he's not as fast as he said he was. Stop predicting 40 times. And it's also annoying when guys run like 4.41 and they're like, oh, I'm so much faster than that. That was slow for me. Stop it.
Man, he's so explosive though.
He is, for sure.
It's just funny because people are like, how come blah 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 blah. It's like, I don't know, turn on the tape, dude. Turn on the tape.
Yeah. I will say, the thing is, he is fast, but I don't like if you would ask me to guess his 40 time, I would have said, 4.4. Like,
well, you got to remember what his role in the offense was.
Right.
Oh wow, there he is. Making the most of the opportunity, hamming it up in front of the Green Bay crowd. So we got a couple picks left. Does somebody okay? So where who's at 24 now? It's Minnesota. They're not picking a quarterback. Houston, Rams. Yeah, man. I guess the Rams are the only team, unless somebody jumps up, that where there's even a possibility here of one of those quarterbacks. If you're the
that's
Giants
what I was
or the
saying.
Browns,
Dart or Shador, that's the only team that could say.
Man.
And really, but that's the thing, though. That would be ideal for them to say, let's bring in Stafford's replacement. 2 years ago, they were saying the guy's shoulder might fall off. Like, the fact that he's lasted this long is great, but go now and grab his replacement.
Man, I'll tell you, I kind of love the idea of Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. I don't know, man. There's something about that situation that I think would be really cool.
And let's see. I want to see. He's gone. If not for the trade down, I kind of thought, could we see Cleveland take Travis Hunter in the first and Shedeur in the second? That would have been cool.
Look at Matthew Golden wearing the gold.
But you got right now, NFL.com, top available, Will Johnson, Mike Green, and Luther Burden. Nick Emmanwori, these are your top guys. James Pierce is a guy who's, I feel like he should be, it felt like months ago he was a sort of a consensus number one.
Yeah, it's character stuff, I think, a lot of times with this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, let's see. That he was, I think it was the Bucky Brooks, I think that podcast I mentioned earlier that I was listening to. I think they mentioned Nolan and Pierce specifically as guys who had some character questions. Because again, on film, especially Nolan, top 10 talent.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. This is where it gets really funny and interesting. It really does. Where you start the stories will come out later, where you find out why the guy went lower than everybody expected, and it's like, oh, he had a broken leg, or he drove drunk or something, or he nobody came to his birthday party. It's
Exactly. Which reminds me, I totally forgot to watch Draft Day today. That's Started doing that a couple of years ago. And just
Oh boy, that's an
blank today.
interesting one by the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, I'm gonna mute you.
You and I like it. You and I
Oh,
like
I'm
it.
gonna mute me.
It's somebody that we wanted to come off the board.
Very good player. Very happy with that pick. He's a monster. Like when I turned on Ohio State to watch some of their players, like I think I've said, like I focus on the top programs late in the process because you see so much of them even just by accident. But when I turned on the film and focused on him, I was like, Jesus, this guy is a people mover. And then then he slides out to tackle and plays well there. Once he did that, I was like, this guy's made himself a first-round pick. I mean, he may have already been a first-round pick as a guard, and then he kicks out
Oh,
the
the
tackle.
Giants just traded up. It's got to be for Dart.
Or Shedeur. Let's see. All right. What do you think? What do you think? You think it's Dart? Are you still with me? Okay. But yeah, I'm not muted. I guess Scott stepped away, but I'm gonna say this is Shedeur. This would be completely wild. Oh, Scott is offline, disconnected, I'm assuming, for some reason. He may come back, he may not. But just looking at this with the Giants moving up, you would have to imagine it's for a quarterback. Because again, this team have to get an infusion there. They have to try to save their jobs. But again, I'm not convinced that Dart or Sanders are ready to step in year one and, lead a playoff charge. But let's see here. We've got, Giants move up. We'll find out in a bit what the compensation was. And Scott is back.
Got to be Jackson Dart, right?
Why can't it be Shedeur?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, the
Yeah,
rumors have been that Brian Dable liked Dart better, but you're right. It could be Shedeur or Shadir.
Yeah, that is as I was asking you that question. I remember hearing earlier that people now it sounds absurd to me, but people saying Dart reminded Dable of Josh Allen in some ways.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
In some ways, I think the thing they were focusing on was his willingness to take off and run when things break down, but keep his eyes downfield to throw the football. And they felt that Shedeur was more of a slide around, east-west and try to buy himself time.
I thought you were going to say that he's dating a girl that looks like Haley Steinfeld.
I don't know who Haley Steinfeld is.
That's she's an actress. She's Josh Allen's fiance.
Gotcha.
That's about the only similarity I see there. But after the Giants pick, I'm going to jump out for a little bit so I can get a little fresh air before you and I record our recap on Play Like a Jet. But I'm going to wait and see what the Giants do.
Yeah, let's see what they roll with here.
Are they taking a quarterback? I don't know, man. Jackson Dart is so weird to me. I could see him maybe being good, but I don't know. Okay, so they traded. Wow. Okay, they traded a 3 this year and a 3 next year. It's not that bad. if it's for a quarterback and the guy ends up good, you're not going to really care.
No, not at all.
Especially if your job's on the line, which theirs is. Oh, Shedeur Sanders is smiling. Is it him? Was it Dart? I don't know. I hope it's not Shedeur. I don't want to have to root against Shedeur, honestly.
Yeah, I think let's see. Yeah, based on what people were saying pre-draft or earlier today,
No, it's got to be. It's Shador because everybody at the Giants war room is high fiving. It's because they
So
just
I,
showed Shador. Oh no, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just.
I was gonna
I
say
like
they'd be
the
high
chaos.
fiving no matter who it is.
No. But I see them high fiving right after they showed Shador smiling and hugging somebody. That was why. But I mean, that could mean anything.
And I'm not so sure all this is always live. I think sometimes there's a little delay on this stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, everybody thinks it's for Dart. I mean, I don't know. Or
I
what?
don't
What
know.
if what if it's a curveball and it's Milrow
Well, that was some talk, wasn't it?
or Tyler Shuck, who's
It'd be
96
hilarious
years
if it's
old?
not a quarterback.
Yeah, right. The Giants select, and it's like some edge.
Will
It's Mike
Johnson.
Green. Yeah, Mike Green. They pick another edge rusher.
Yeah.
Or they
We're
go
just
and
gonna
pick
try to beat everyone 6-3.
Josh Connerly to replace Evan Neal, who sucks.
There you go.
Man,
Let's
I'm
see
telling
here.
you though, to me, I'm looking at. I mean, I don't know what the medical situation is, but I'm looking at Campbell. I'm looking at Amanwari. I love those two guys as possibilities, and then all the receivers and tight ends. There's so many good ones left on the board.
Yeah.
As of now, a lot of opportunities if the Jets play it smart. But I mean, Membu was the smart pick there. I think you could
you
make
think-
an argument for Banks.
Do you think Mason Taylor
Walker.
lasts till 42?
Maybe he might. I don't know.
25.
The pick is in. Unless, the Eagles could take Mason Taylor at 32
They could.
because it looks like they're looking to move on from Goddard. Oh, here comes Goodell. Quarterback, Ole
All right,
Miss,
I'm gonna-
Jackson Dart.
I'm gonna mute me for a second so I can turn this up. I want to hear it.
It's Dart. Yep, there you go. I don't know how much I like that, but I kind of I get to root against Jackson Dart now, so that's cool.
Wow.
Am I crazy or does Jackson Dart kind of look like Logan Paul?
He does. He
A little
does.
bit, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, man. That's
Is
wild.
that his
That's
mother? Wow, his mother's an attractive lady. Good for her.
Might be.
Wait.
Yeah.
But dude, it's funny because I can say that because like a lot of these kids' parents are around my age.
Yeah. Well, God, how creepy was that when Craig Carton was like, "Hey, Zach Wilson, what's it like having such a hot mom?"
Well, here's what I'll say. As creepy as that was, I hate to say it, but like you know what you're in for when you go on that guy's show. So
dude, he was a rookie. He's just been drafted. The Jets media probably like, "Here, you're doing radio today. Pick up
they
this."
shouldn't
probably just
let
hand him the phone.
They shouldn't have let him go on that show. Is what it comes down to. They should have had him go on with some, whatever the other show was. They shouldn't have done that. So
yeah.
By the way,
yeah.
I'm just saying one of the guys that you're going to see in the highlight tape a lot with Jackson Dart is a guy that I would love at number 42.
Oh, Harris.
Yeah, love Trey Harris. Big
Trey
fan.
Harris. Yeah,
but
he's a really good one.
Yeah, for sure. But on that note, I'm going to go get some fresh air, and then I'll talk to you as soon as this first round is over. We'll have Play Like a Jet. We'll have a good old time. Nick Ferry is going to join us.
All right, sounds good, man. We'll catch up in a little bit.
All right.
Okay, so there you see the Giants go with Jackson Dart over Shador Sanders, who is, look, again, like I said, Shador's well coached by his father. They're pros. Well, Dad's a pro, and I'm sure he told them at the beginning of the night, no matter what happens, no matter where you go, the cameras are going to be on us every single second. The second you look down, the second you look beaten, they're going to clip that and they're going to show it. So all night, laugh. And every time we've seen Shador Sanders laughing, dancing, smiling, talking like not a care in the world. But as is the case with anybody who believes they might be a top 3 pick that's still sitting there now, it's got to be burning them up inside. The same way he did Aaron Rodgers. Anybody, any guy, any human being who's expecting to be, among the elite in their field, showing up one day and being told, you're not in that class. That's going to hurt with him. Let's see. Do I think that my info, how are we doing? It says, do I think the Jets could take him? If you mean Shador, I don't see it happening. I think they will take a quarterback on day 3. I don't think they're going to take one early on. I think they genuinely are going to use their early picks on immediate starters. You know, I almost wanted to say on help for Justin Fields, which it still may be the case. Like, I think there's a good chance they go tight end, but DT wouldn't shock me. Like, but I think they want those first few picks to be day one starters, guys who will contribute immediately, and then go with some project guys after that. So I don't think Shedeur will be in play for the Jets. Certainly not in round 2 at 42. And look, maybe I'm wrong, right? We're sitting here talking about how these guys who are, insiders with sources and connections and da-da-da-da, this, that, and the other, and they're getting this stuff wrong. So we're all just having fun guessing what we think this team's going to do, what that team's going to do. Now you got Atlanta on the clock. Could this be Jahad Campbell? Jeff Ulbrich, of course, Jets former DC. Is this? Okay, so yeah, this is Atlanta trading up. Of course, because that was the Rams pick where we thought Shedeur would have a chance to go. So Atlanta, having already taken Jalen Walker, and they needed as much defense as they can get. So of course they're not taking Campbell. They took Walker. Bad job there by me. Forgot about that. But let's see. This is the worst part. I guess, you know what? Since it's only myself. Oh, you know what though? I'm not gonna. Let's see. Come back in the first round. Yeah. Okay. So no word yet on what that Falcons pick is. Roger Goodell coming to the podium now. I will mute to listen.
To the Atlanta Falcons, with the 26th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select James Pierce Jr.
So there you have it. James Pierce Jr., the Tennessee edge rusher. Just minutes ago, I was saying to Scott that he's a guy who is a legitimate first-round talent, who some said had some off-field issues, and that's why he wasn't going, or that's why some were projecting him to go in the second round. But this is a really good job by Atlanta. Atlanta has needed to fix their pass rush forever. It's ironic that the Falcons, you could say the same thing about the Falcons that we said about the Jets for so many years, is that the last dominant edge rusher they had was John Abraham. Because how long did we say that about the Jets? And now the Jets have Will McDonald, and they have JJ, and they had Huff for a year. So the Jets finally added some guys who can get to the quarterback. But this does make sense for the Falcons because they just if you look at their history over the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years, their edge rushers, it's been ugly. They've drafted guys who have missed. They've drafted some busts who didn't work out. And now Pierce comes in from Tennessee. 13 TFLs, 7.5 sacks last year for the Volunteers. Blew the combine out of the water, ran in the 4.4s, explosive athlete. So the Falcons will hope that he is his career high sacks was 10 2 years ago, but the Falcons obviously hope that he will come in and be an immediate difference maker on that defense. But now you've added 2 really good players to that defensive front. And let's see, we got something here from Schefter or from Rappaport.
Basically, everyone he knows, they met with him and his mom yesterday doing late homework on Pierce, believe in the culture that Raheem Morris has created.
So it seems the Falcons did have some concerns about things they'd heard about character, but they met with him. They met with him and his mother yesterday. So that late in the process, the Falcons were still doing homework on Pierce and obviously came away feeling all right about it. Yeah, so this I'm scrolling through. This is still wild that Jackson Dart went before Shedeur. But again, remember, Charlie Weis, listen, it's tough because Charlie Weis, he's got a vested interest in this. His son was Jackson Dart's offensive coordinator in college at Ole Miss, but Charlie Weis tweeted out before the Senior Bowl, this guy is a first-round pick, and if someone doesn't take him in the first round, it's a joke. He talked about having seen every throw he made in college. He talked about his work ethic. He talked about how he approaches the game. One thing that Charlie Weis liked about Jackson Dart, in the interview he did with Rich Cimini, he said that when he went to Ole Miss to visit. And, you got to remember, Charlie Weis is a Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator who was, part of a team that mentored Tom Brady. So, he's got some clout. And he said he had the opportunity to speak with Jackson Dart. And what impressed him most was that Jackson Dart came across as a genuine guy. And his first question was, what do I have to do to be great? Like, what would set me apart? And he said he took to heart what Weis told him. And he said, here's what Brady did. Here's how it's done. And talking about the extra work and the responsibility and all that. And he got the impression that Dart took it all on board. He felt like he improved as during his time in college. And he was adamant that Jackson Dart was worth a first-round pick. And then you had Albert Breer a couple of weeks ago saying that he walked, he made the rounds at the combine and, through however he was contacting folks. And he said he couldn't find anybody who was saying they would take Shedeur in the first round. So Shedeur, it's like I said, anytime you're a quarterback, anytime you're a player and you're told for however many years and you believe, because the Shedeur elite quarterback first round, this conversation has been going on for a couple of years now. So this is going to be quite a letdown for him. But look, how many times have we seen it? How many times have we seen really good players who go way later than they thought, and it just lights a fire in them, and it sort of propels them on to have a fantastic career? And maybe that happens with Shedeur Sanders. But I don't know where he lands at this point. Okay, sorry. I don't know where Shedeur lands at this point. Again, unless somebody trades up, which really is his best hope at this, which it's his best hope, and I wouldn't completely rule it out. Because if you look beyond that, if you look at the round 2 teams, let's take a quick look, see if I can find that draft order beyond round 1. We talked about the Rams, right? They're 34. Unless, they may have included that. Philly at 32. I would imagine, like I said, Philly loves to just Howie Roseman's done a phenomenal job with them. He's in position to trade out if he wants to, and he's in position with that 32nd pick that teams are likely to call because that's their last chance to get a guy who they might, teams sometimes they're sitting in the war room and they're looking and thinking, how is this guy who we have 11th on our board, how is he still there? And we're sitting at 34, 35. They're convinced that guy's going to go first overall tomorrow. So let's jump up to the 32nd pick and grab him now before someone tries to get a day 2 bargain. And we get great value for a guy that we love, and we get that extra year. And it looks like the Ravens pick is in. The Ravens they just draft so well. They do such a great job. Yeah, Jackson the Giant. Big time story for New York football. Jackson Dart. But is he ready? Or when again, that was the big concern with Jackson Dart coming out, was the fact that he plays this offense where he's not asked to do a lot of things that he is going to be asked to do in the pros. Looks like Goodell is getting ready to come out with the Ravens pick. Be sure to give us a follow at Jet Nation on Twitter. You can give me a follow at JNRadio_Glenn, Dylan Terriman, my co-host at D Terriman, and Scott Mason of Play Like a Jet, who joined us for much tonight at Play Like a Jet 1. And here is Goodell with the pick. Malachi Starks. Tell you what, with Kyle Hamilton in that secondary, that's some guys you can move around. Malachi Starks, phenomenal player for Georgia. And I was only half joking earlier when I said, if you want to see what Philly is going to do if they stick, look and see who the best available player is still remaining on the board from Georgia. And we only have a few picks until Philly is on the board. Let's see if it's a need. Let's scroll down. Next Georgia player listed. Oh, wow. Have they all gone? At least I'm just looking at the page that it's on, page 1 of the best available on NFL.com. JT Tuimoloau. I like that guy a lot. What is he? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's about 15th ranked on the players who are still available. Again, per NFL.com. But that is going to be an impressive defense for the Baltimore Ravens. They rarely miss. And you would have to imagine, again, Starks coming from a top program, top production, just a really good pick for Baltimore. Always seems they have a player fall to them that if you're not thinking, how did that guy fall on the day, you're thinking it by year, and there he is hugging and carrying Roger Goodell for a few steps. He is psyched. Goodell's a big dude. People don't realize it. Like, all these players are 6'2", 6'3", and he's right up there with them. Let's see. In the chat, my info, we need another wide receiver. Look, they're going to get a pass catcher at some point, my info, right? I mean, I think tight end at 42 is a good chance, if not tight end. Again, Luther Burden, right? If he's there, and I don't know that he will be, he's got the talent. I could maybe if Kansas City picks, I know they just took Worthy. I think Kansas City has to go O-line. And as myself and Scott were saying, that's kind of what you want here. You want as many teams as possible to draft O-linemen because you know that is not a need for the Jets. They are now set. They've got 5 guys, all relatively young. John Simpson being the only guy who's not on his first contract. And yeah, as Antoine Staley says, such a Ravens pick. Just popped into Twitter to see what people were saying about the pick. And it is. Makes perfect sense. And again, gives Baltimore a really good secondary. Going to be a tough defense to contend with. And it's, when you've got a multiple-time MVP at quarterback, you're going to put up points. Just go out and get. Now, look, they could have gone receiver. They've had some issues there. They've had some guys who didn't pan out. They've had some guys who are pretty good players, but struggle with drops at times, seemingly in key spots. So perhaps Baltimore takes a receiver at some point. But the Jets, I fully expect to take 1 or 2 pass catchers, tight end receiver, 2 tight ends, whatever it may be. Because look, you're not going to address every single need in this draft. You're not going to fix all your problems. Look, it's draft time. By Saturday, we're going to be talking about how we love these guys and they're all great. And this guy's a steal and that guy's a steal and this guy can make the roster. Reality is, a couple of them will, a couple of them won't. Some of them might hang on the practice squad. I'm just talking math here. Listen, maybe they all make it, and make an impact. Damn near impossible. But we'll have the most positive outlook possible, as any fan base does, when the draft wraps up. Obviously, Jets have 7 more picks after today, unless they move up today. But no updates. Haven't seen anything else on Breece Hall. I'm sure most of you have seen that by now. It was rumored a few hours before the draft that the Jets were looking to move him, and teams have been contacted and let it be known that Breece Hall. Well, I shouldn't say teams were contacted. They did. Connor Hughes came out and said he is not being shopped, but he's available for the right price. Which, as I said earlier, is silly because every player is available for the right price. So that's kind of a duh. No kidding. That's not an update that you need if you understand how these things work. The quote that I love that we heard from Aaron Glenn. We heard about Aaron Glenn when he believed he was being shopped by Bill Parcells, and he went to speak to Parcells, and Parcells told him, Aaron Glenn was hearing that he was being shopped for trade. And Parcells said, well, I'm not shopping you, but of course, if we get calls, we'll listen. And if I got the right call, a good enough offer, I would trade my wife. Which that's kind of the way the league works. You always have to be working to improve as a team.
The Detroit Lions select
And DT Tyleik Williams from Ohio State goes to Detroit. Williams is a guy, plays low, plays with a good pad level, really powerful off the snap, moves guys around. He's a force against the run. I'm not sure what his sack numbers were, but I thought he was a really good player. He was actually, I wrote a really early scouting report on him earlier in the season. In fact, it was so early, I don't think we even ended up using it. But Tyleik Williams, we said then that he was a first round pick. Moves really well for a guy who checks in at 330. Detroit, that D line, you saw the injuries they had last year, but you know what a physical team they are. Tyleik Williams fits that, and I think that Dan Campbell, Lions fans are going to love him. But this is you don't want to see this. I mean, guys are going to get drafted that you could see that fall into a position group that's also a need for the Jets, which you'd like to see as many of those guys available as possible when they are on the clock tomorrow at 42. And we are sitting at lost track of what pick we were on. Here we go. Tyleik Williams was pick number 28. So we've got 4 picks left: Commanders, Bills, Chiefs, Eagles. So what do we think, chat? What do we think? Who do you think, or do you think anybody's going to move up to take Shedeur? I think it's unlikely, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. I think there is a chance. There was talk, and Scott mentioned this, there was talk that the Giants might move up for Jalen Milroe. Obviously not the case. Let's see. Washington, I'm trying to find, I was looking at a mock earlier. I want to see what they had Washington projected to go corner. Now this was, I think is this Brugler, Dane Brugler, perhaps? Maxwell Hairston, the corner out of Kentucky, who, if memory serves, looked really good at the Senior Bowl. I think he got a lot of love down there. And Buffalo will follow that, then the Chiefs, and then the Eagles. Jets fans, of course, will have some interest in what Buffalo does because they'll be taking a player the Jets will be facing for years to come. Let's see what they had there. Take another quick look. Oh, well, that won't be happening. Had him down for Malachi Starks, who obviously just went to the Ravens. Jaden Daniels, what a phenomenal year he had as a rookie. You got to feel really good about that if you're Washington, obviously. I mean, he's going to be one of those sort of face of the league type of guys for years to come. The Rams and Browns now own multiple first rounders in 2026, thanks to their trades tonight. I mean, I knew the Giants liked, or it was rumored that they liked Dart, and I guess who was it? Was it? I think that's exactly what Orlovsky said. Would the Giants trade? Oh no, he mentioned trading Thibodeau. They obviously ended up trading picks, but Dan Orlovsky said, would they trade Thibodeau to get back into the first round to take Jackson Dart? They end up moving picks and getting their guy. Let's see. What time we got here in England? 4:20 in the morning. Not gonna lie, feeling it a little bit. Even though I normally work nights, I'm normally up all night anyway. But last couple days I slept better than I should have, which threw off my schedule a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of people missed on the Jets pick. And like I said, I think for me, like I said, I did the mock draft with Fox Sports Radio and PA a couple weeks ago, and I went with Membu. But I think all the noise and all the traffic and all the people projecting Warren and Walker and edge guys, I started to second guess myself, because really it did seem pretty simple, right? It's like, all right, the goal is to get Justin Fields to succeed. And I believe the way they're going to do that is to have him use his legs a lot and have him hand the ball off a lot. So back to ground and pound, which isn't very popular among a lot of people. But if that's what your personnel dictates, then go for it. And in order to do that, you needed a right tackle. Max Mitchell can do it for you. Carter Warren. I could see a world where Mitchell doesn't make the roster. I think Warren will, but we'll see. They all new coaches, new staff, new O-line, new everything really. So these guys got to get in the building and work with these dudes and see what they feel and how they like them. Max Mitchell, I've felt for a couple of years now, I thought maybe you move him to guard and he would be a better fit there. But I don't know that that's in the cards. We'll see what the Jets do with those guys. Some of them may not even make it to camp. And let's see. And there's the pick for Washington, another O-lineman. That's good news for the Jets. Crazy athletic. Josh Connolly out of Oregon. Athleticism absolutely off the charts. Probably, I haven't looked at his testing numbers since the combine, but I would imagine no other lineman tested better than him in terms of just lateral agility, speed, for a guy who weighs what he weighs. This is a good pick for them. Makes sense. And Connolly had that one bad rep in Mobile against Mike Green, and people went way too nuts about that. It was one rep. It was out of position on playing on the right side. He's a left tackle. And I'm excited about Membu, folks. Talk a little bit more about that. As I said, you now have your bookend tackles set for the next hour. And again, of course, this is assuming Membu is a hit. The only criticism I've heard of Membu, the only sort of concern or question, whatever you want to call it, pardon me, like I said, feeling it. Ram Carthon, former Titans GM, was on with the first pick, the podcast that Spielman had been doing. He's kind of taken Spielman's spot there now. He said he thought he was a little bit too raw to take that early. He didn't say he wasn't a good player. He didn't say he didn't like him. He just said 7 was a little bit too rich for a guy who was as raw as Membu. But look, the thing is, I heard him say that, and I thought, okay, fair point, but this team's not contending for a Super Bowl this year. And they know that. So, why not just draft a guy, even if he needs a year to get his feet wet, to get comfortable? You've got a year to do that. I am not so secretly hoping that these last few picks go very quickly. But again, you never know if there are trade talks, especially, again, as I've said, not to beat a dead horse, but teams looking to move up and get into the bottom of that round. Let's see. On my clock, by my count, 4 minutes 20 remaining. 4:14 actually now. For the Buffalo Bills. Oh, how was that? That's like being a teenager again. Voice crack. Vocal cords are tired too, I guess. Taking a look at guys who are still available. Will Johnson. I mean, this is great value for whoever takes Will Johnson in this class. That's going to be great value. Luther Burden, I think, is going to be great value. Mason Taylor is kind of an X factor. He wasn't crazy productive in college, but he still looked pretty damn good. And it was like, was he just not getting the targets because he looked like a really good player? And, that's why people have him projected to go early round 2. Let's see. So the Giants anoint Russell Wilson their starter. Oh, again. Get a drink. A lot of talking today. Russ Wilson, Joe Schoen on Jackson Dart says he can come in, sit behind a couple of veteran quarterbacks and learn. Brian Dable says Russ will be our starter. So take the pressure off Jackson Dart right away. Smart move. But again, if they genuinely believe he's going to be the backup all year, I don't think they believe that. I don't think if you're trying to save your job, you don't draft the backup. You draft guys who are going to play and help you win. What is this here? Somebody retweeted this. That was ugly. Apparently, Coach Prime getting into it with somebody on Twitter. He will be a top 5 pick. Where's your son going? Okay, so basically commenting on someone on Twitter that his son was not going to be successful. The Twitter guy's son, random guy, I assume. With Prime saying he's going to be a top 5 pick. Where's your son going? LOL. I got time today. Again, the expectation was top 5 pick for quite some time, and now it looks like day 2 pick, and that happens. I mean, we knew this was a possibility. This was discussed really at length on a lot of different podcasts, a lot of different insiders who said, look, there is a possibility that this guy won't go in round 1. And now he hasn't gone in round 1. As I've said, you hear a lot of people talking about him as a player. And these are people, listen, every player has strengths and weaknesses. So these aren't haters who are tearing Shedeur down. You listen to people who say, look, he understands the game, has the pedigree, grew up in that environment. Not people who are just looking to trash the guy, but one thing I heard from, that you hear from several people and that you see on film is that he might have the weakest arm in the class. You can overcome that. He's got a good enough arm, but can you go first or in the first round with the weakest arm in the class? Oh, and there's Maxwell Harrison to the Bills. Who did we just say he might go to? Washington is the possibility. But once Malachi Starks went, you had to figure Buffalo was going to continue working to address that secondary. And Harrison, who, as I said, had himself a really good Senior Bowl, had himself a nice career at Kentucky, goes in round number 1. And I don't know who's left in the green room at this point, other than Will Johnson. I always feel terrible for these guys who don't go in the first round. It's you bring them out there, and that's not great. Not great. Not a great situation for them. But now you're down to, let's see, the final couple of picks of round number 1. There we go. Trying to find the right tab on the computer. All right, so Harrison goes. Now you got Philly, and then you got KC. So here's where you open up your ears and you listen and see, do one of these teams take some calls for a trade up for a quarterback? I still would like, as I said, I think, well, I shouldn't say I would like. Well, it doesn't matter because the Jets aren't taking him now, but Ariante Arcery to KC makes sense to me. But I think I like him more than most. I disagree with those who say he's a 3rd-round pick. I think he could be. I mean, you do see he does show up in a lot of mocks in this range. Those last couple picks, 31. I think some people even had him at 32, but I don't know about that because some people feel he's a guard at the next level. I think he's a tackle, but we'll see. We'll see what the league thinks of him. We'll see if he goes here. And yeah, really, I've always said, unless a team is actively working on a trade, like give them 5 minutes. You've had a year to prepare for this pick. You know, if you're not actively working on a trade, you got a couple minutes to get the damn pick up there and move on. Oh, and there it is. The Eagles are on the clock. Were they not? Oh yeah, of course they were 32. They are now 31. They jumped up ahead. Kansas City trades 31 for 32, and round 5, pick 164. So, all right, Kansas City adds a pick, a 5th rounder, in exchange for 1 draft slot. And who do we think this is for? I wouldn't be surprised if it's John. Well, no, not Johnson. We talked about Mike Green as a possibility earlier today. That could be the pick here. See, pick is in. Eagles pick is in. I can't see it. No, it wouldn't be Luther Burden. Nick Amanwari. I mean, this is the thing. There's good value in these spots. And then there will be just one. And that'll be Kansas City. And we'll see if they take Ursary. But like I said, give me a follow at JNRadio_Glenn. We will be live throughout the draft. More coverage tomorrow from pick 33 all the way through to the end of round 3. And then on the final day, we will be here for rounds 4 through 7. And that's where the fun stuff is. This is the easy stuff. This is the, as much as we said we didn't know who the Jets would be taking, like I said, I think that was a product of too much time, hearing too many opinions, too many takes. A few weeks ago, I felt like it would be Membu, and then I came off of that, and then it ends up being Membu. So, let's see. This is I don't know why people share tweets from, and let's see. Yeah, sorry, I got sidetracked there. Let's see. Coach. Yeah, so I guess there are a handful of fans, and we said this at the beginning. We said this earlier. No matter who you pick, you're going to upset some fans, and anybody who I don't get being upset about the Membu pick, but I think some folks are just sort of determined to be upset about every. And listen, I'm pissed off at this team still. I'm getting a lot of Glenn, why are you being so negative? Glenn, why are you being so hateful? Glenn, why are you being so look? They just turned in a horrendous effort. And really, when you look at the Rodgers injury, that was 2 years of hype, 2 years of like finally good enough. They're finally going to compete. Not just make the playoffs, but they're going to make a run through the playoffs, and they have a shot at the Super Bowl. And then you're out of it again by week 5 or 6. You're firing the coach. Everything's over. It's like, man, if you can find a way to screw that up that badly, that quickly, there's no reason. Like, they deserve the benefit of the doubt nowhere. I'm fine with any criticism, but to be like so over the top and say the pick is terrible and it's horrible, Give me a break. You're getting a top-rated guy at a position of need. And let's see. Jahad Campbell, Nick Emenwari, Will Johnson. This is Daniel Jeremiah's best available, just popped up on my screen here. But let's see. Let's is there a Georgia player? I don't know that there's a Georgia player rated high enough to make it worth their while. Josh Simmons. I don't know. Let's see. Should be any minute now. Eagles first and second round picks. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. Cam Jurgens. They just gave Cam Jurgens a big extension. If you were following our show back then, you remember I was banging the drum for him leading into that draft. I think he ended up going even earlier than I expected, but I really liked him. The nastiness, the played with the right mentality. Hustled his ass off. I remember there was one play in particular. I swear he was blocking the dude. It had to be 50 plus yards downfield and like riding the dude out of bounds. It was a phenomenal job. Guys who play that hard, who hustle that hard, you take them on your team any day. Oh, here comes Roger Goodell. Gonna mute this.
With the 31st pick in the 2025 NFL draft.
There you go. I think I just said that a minute ago. Possibly Jahad Campbell. Really good player. I think he's better than Walker, personally. But not a Georgia guy, but an Alabama guy. So Howie Roseman sticks with going with those big-time SEC programs that win a ton of football games. Jahad Campbell, Philly's going to love him. Physical, aggressive, athletic. Really good player. Really good player. Let's see. Yeah. So now this is it for Shedeur. This is it. Do we see a team make a move to come up and get him? Yeah. I don't know that we do, but we'll know. Let's see. Oh, looks like Shedeur is getting trolled a little on social media, which it's to be expected. High profile guys who don't go where they think they're going to go, and people hop on it. That is what it is. Got to be 4:30 by now, right? My time, 4:40. All right, 4:40. Last pick. Then we'll hop on Play Like a Jet. Scott Mason, Nick Faria, and wrap up this Jets pick. I don't know how you can be opposed to it. I understand wanting other things. I listen. Tetairoa McMillan was my guy, and has been for a while. But if you listen to our show, you heard me say a million times from this past offseason all the way up through now that he was my favorite player in this class. And he opened the season at New Mexico. I get it's New Mexico, but still went for like 250 some yards. Insane day. And I knew then he's going to be a top 10. And again, thought the Jets wouldn't be in position to take him because they thought the Jets were going to be good. And then when it became apparent they were going to be in position to take him, I hoped like hell they'd take him. And they didn't. And he goes one pick later. So, listen, if Membu pans out, nobody's. I'm not going to care. Nobody should. But we will see. And let's see. We got some rap sheet chat.
On the Chargers, again, 24. Now,
Well, so it sounds like Philly had a situation similar to what the Jets had with, who was it? Was it Corley last year? Somebody. Apparently, Philly tried to trade up several times into the 20s to get Jihad Campbell, and they end up getting him at 31. You have to figure they expected somebody was going to try to jump them and grab him, so they make the swap with KC to get up to 31 and take their guy. And let's see. Okay, that's good. What are we thinking? Let's say they do. Let's say KC does stick. I know I said Ursery, but I don't think that's not going to happen. Who is the best, at least according to? Did I say Josh Simmons already? I think I said that already. That could be a possibility. Or do they grab a receiver? Again, I know they took Xavier Worthy last year, but they've had guys battling injuries. They've had guys inconsistent play, relying too heavily on Kelsey at times. Kelsey's getting a little long in the tooth. Do you grab Mason Taylor? Is that too early for him here? I don't know that Kelsey's at that point where you're going to draft his replacement in the first round, especially again in this class where there's so many good tight ends, and you can get one later on. But final pick, just moments away. And it looks, if you're a Jets fan and you're not already a member, be sure to log into jetnation.com, most active Jets message board on the web, tons of conversation, and you know there will be a whole bunch of it in the coming days as the draft unfolds. And here come the Chiefs. I'm going to mute. And there it is. Josh Simmons, mentioned him as a possibility. Him or Ursery. Ursery, again, I'm just higher on Ursery than most. But Simmons, for a team that needs an offensive lineman, another outstanding value pick. And again, this is what you want as Jets fans. As many offensive linemen as possible. Hopefully we kick off tomorrow with a couple more offensive linemen, or 3 or 4 or 5 as we work our way to the Jets at 42. That'll wrap this one up, folks. What are we, just under 4 hours at 3:56? Just coming up on 3:57. Thanks for tuning in. Good time as always. Always love knocking out the draft. We will be back tomorrow for rounds 2 and 3, where hopefully the Jets get some pass catchers or a pass catcher, and then maybe a DT to slide in there next to Quinnen Williams. Lord knows they need some help there as well. Catch you tomorrow, Jets fans. And tonight it's not just Jets fans, I'm sure. Fans from around the league wanting to keep up. Appreciate you tuning in. I know there's a lot of options out there, but it is fun to hop in and just and get some fan perspective. And again, it'll be a majority Jets fans. And yeah, you can check out ESPN, but once the Jets are done with their pick, you're not going to hear about them for the rest of the night. This is a nice way to come here and get some Jets talk intertwined with the goings on of the evening. We'll catch you tomorrow, Jets fans.